Jay, you can go ahead and begin your opening 13-minute statement now.
Thank you. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable, O Lord. Everything I say and do. What we're going to do tonight, and what we want to do, is take this question: is the Quran, does it come from God or does it come from man? And I'm going to have to zip through the 13 minutes to try to get through what I want to say. Now, in fact, all the Muslims I've ever met do claim that the Quran is, well, it's inimitable. It is eternal. It exists on the eternal tablets. It was sent down to a man named Muhammad over a 22-year period from 610 to 632. It was also then compiled, not at the time Muhammad was living, but soon after, about 20 years after, during the time of Uthman. And that the Quran that we have today is exactly the same that was compiled at the time of Uthman in 650, and exactly the same Quran that exists in those tablets in heaven. Now, what we're going to do tonight is confront that notion. There are many Muslims who claim that today, that the Quran has not changed in the last 1400 years. Shabir Ali, who I debated in 2014 on this subject, makes that claim. Suzanne Hanif goes on and says, it's the only divine revealed scripture in the history of mankind. It is preserved in its exact original form. Fethullah Gulen from your country, it says it has not been altered, edited, or tampered with. It is perfectly preserved in its original words. Yusuf Ali, one of the translators, one of the most popular translators of the Quran in the English language, says not a single letter has yielded to corruption. Mavi Muhammad Ali out of the Ahmadiyya movement says not even a diacritical point has been changed. A manuscript with the slightest variation in the text is unknown. And the Al-Nahyan Foundation says it has remained unchanged even to a dot. So these are pretty enormous claims for a book that most Muslims believe is from God. I'm going to confront these different quotes and try to say tonight that almost much of the Quran that we're looking at has been changed, has been manipulated, has been certainly written down, corrected, not even in the 7th century, but the 8th up into the 9th century. Now, let's start with Sahih Al-Bukhari. I have Sahih Al-Bukhari right here. This is volume 6, volume 6, chapter 10. I'm sorry, volume 6, 509 and 510. So we're going to look at 509 and 510, which gives us the story of how the Quran was put together. And this is where Muslims have to go to find out how it was compiled. It's written in the 9th century, so we're talking about 200 years. Very clear that at the time of Uthman, there were many Qurans, therefore they had to put together one final Quran. Uthman had the Zayd ibn Thabit, who was the secretary of Muhammad, rewrite the Quran along with 3 others. And then it says, curiously, in 510, that they sent every one of the to every one of the provinces at that time. That included Basra, Baghdad, Damascus, Jerusalem, Cairo, Alexandria. That would included Aden, Herat, and also and Nishapur. Those are the 9 provinces at the time of the 7th century. A copy of this Quran. So there should be 9 copies today. We're only talking about 1400 years ago. Where are those 9 copies? Can we even find one? And that's what I'm going to be asking tonight. That's one of the first problems. We do know that there are some copies that do exist today, and there are 6 major copies that Muslims claim are the ones that they would like to look at. If you look at this paper that's put out by Altakulich and Ihsanalu, this is the Al-Musaf Al-Sharif. You can get it. We have it, the entire book. Just look at the first introduction of that book, and you will see that they make claim after claim, because these 2 gentlemen were given 5 years to look at those 6 manuscripts, and what they found is that not one of those 6 manuscripts, and that's the top copy, that's the Samarkand, that's the Ma'il, that would be the Husayni, the Petropolitus, also, and what am I missing? I talked about that. The Sauna Manuscript, I'm missing the Sauna Manuscript. Those are the 6 major manuscripts. They looked at them for 5 years between 2002 and 2007, and they came to the agreement not one of them is from the 7th century. Let me just go through them very quickly. Here's the top copy. I don't know if you can see this on the film there, but the top copy is from the mid-8th century. It is in Istanbul. That's at the Topkapi Palace. This is considered to be one of the best ones that's preserved. If you look at it carefully, you will see that there are holes in it. There are lots of damages done to it. The claim is it has 99% of the Quran, but really, because of all the holes and whatnot, only 78% is readable. It has lots of manuscript variants, 2,270 manuscript variants, so don't use that one. The Samarkand is from Tashkent in Uzbekistan. This only goes up to Surah 43. It's written by 5 different writers. It has lots of corrections, edited mistakes, enormous amount of problems with grammar, and that's why even Al-Tukulich says it's somewhat of an embarrassment. Here you can see some of the changes. This is in this Al-Musaf al-Sharif. And you look at some of the difference between just the Tashkent and also the Topkapi and the 1924 text that we use today. I'll be referring to the text we use today as the 1924, because that's when it was created. This is the Maitel manuscript that is in the British Library. This only goes up to Surah 43. It has manuscript variants. Here's the Husseini manuscript. This could be 8th or 9th century. There's a lot of disputation on that one. It has manuscript variants. There's the Petropolitans that is controlled by Darosh. It has 93 variants with the Quran we have today. It is not complete, only makes up about 26% of the Quran. And the Sauna Manuscript, probably the most exciting, because this is the one that was found in 1975, dated to 705, but that's only the top layer. It has other layers below it. It's a palimpsest, and when you look at the layers that come below it, if you look carefully, you can see that there is writing underneath. When you look at those layers, you will see they don't agree with the top layer. Here are some examples. This I get from Dr. Bernie Power's debate that he did in April. Thanks, Bernie, for letting us use it. If you look here, you can see that's the standard text, and the yellow part over here, you can see it has differences in words. Here's a case where you have Allah is, the word Allah is in the Sauna lower text, but it's not in the standard text we use today. I'm just giving you some brief examples. Here you can see the pink part here? Everything you see in pink is missing in the Sauna manuscript that exists in the standard text we use today. So there are many variants. I'm not even going to venture the number that they have been able to find. That's still ongoing. What we do know is that there are many changes. Now, there's a good friend named Dr. Dan Brubaker who did his doctoral research on these manuscripts. He looked at these 6 plus another 4. Back in 2014, I introduced his findings at the debate with Shabir Ali. Dr. Shabir Ali did not have a response. At that time, he found 800 corrections in the earliest manuscripts. Since then, he's continued to do his manuscript research. I was just on the phone with him last week, and this is what he has now found. He has found 390 insertions. These are words that are inserted, either in the line, above or below the line. He has now looked at 450 manuscripts, continues to film them to show the corrections that exist. These are entire words that are inserted. Now remember, he is only interested in the consonantal text. He's not interested in diacritical marks. He's not interested in the vowelization, the dhamma, the kasra, or the fatha. He's only interested in the razm. Those are the actual letters, whether there are changes in the actual letters of these manuscripts. 390.
Jay, you have 5 minutes left in your response.
Thank you. 390, almost 400 erasures of consonantal text. He found 560 erasures that are overwritten. That means they erased it and they wrote over top of it. Sometimes they didn't even bother to overwrite. They just wrote over top. I mean, they didn't even bother to erase. They just wrote over top. He found 190 of these writings over top. Then he found selective coverings. These are coverings, we're not sure why, but they're trying to cover the text up. He found 515 so far of these coverings. And then he came up with tapings. I'll just go beyond that, and to select coverings that are overwritten. These are coverings that then are written over top afterwards. And he found 210. Now, why is this damaging? I'll tell you why this is damaging. Because this shows that there was correction after correction, and these corrections from these 8th century manuscripts. Remember, we don't have anything from the 7th century. We have nothing from the time that Muhammad lived. These manuscripts only begin to appear in the 8th century. Every one of them has hundreds upon hundreds of corrections. What's most damaging is that when you see these corrections, he has found that these corrections seem to standardize the text, seem to be coming back to one standard text, and that these corrections continue to be shown right up until the 9th century. So they're still correcting it in the 8th century. They're still correcting it in the 9th century. This is not a text that has remained pure, proving that these are all done by men, because the corrections are done by men. I don't think God comes to earth and changes text. So that's the first thing you need to look at. Now, the question is whether or not these are still even changed today. Even when you look at the manuscripts that we have in the world today, Jamal al-Din Zarabozo said, to this day, one can travel any part of the world and pick up a copy of the Quran and find it is the same throughout the world. Well, I want to show you 9 Arabic Qurans that we have here. There are many more than this. We can go to Jordan and you can find 24 Arabic Qurans. If you go to Lebanon, you will find 13 Qurans. Dr. Bernie Power has 17 in his own library. In London, we only have these 9. But when you look at the differences, and I'm going to go back to Bernie Power again. He's done probably the best work on this. Before I do that, let me just show you this. These are some that we have found. We have found differences, enormous number of differences between the Hafs and the Warsh. The Hafs is used today as the canonical text. The Warsh is the text that is used in North Africa. If you just compare the Hafs and the Warsh, you will find differences like this, according to Bernie Power. In one place, in Surah 2, Ayah 140, in the Hafs version, it says, or do you say, in a plural form. In the Warsh version, it says, or do they say? Now, that's a big difference, if you or they are doing the speaking here. When he compared it with the Al-Duri version, he found that in Surah
2 minutes.
Hi, thank you. In them it's a big sin. In the Al-Duri version, it is lot of sin. So there's another change. I'm going to move on here because I'm running out of time. But here's what's interesting. Here's the Hafs version that has a incorrect grammar. It has, in Surah 2, Ayah 48, nor will an intercession, which is a feminine noun, followed by be accepted, which is a masculine verb. You can't have a feminine noun followed by a masculine verb. The Hru version changes and corrects it and gets it correct. Now, when he looked at Surah 2, Ayah 271, he noticed in the Hafs version and that it is for you and he, but when he got down to the Al-Suzi version, it had been changed to for you and we. Now, that has a theological implication because it's either from God or from us, depending on where you want to choose between those two versions. When you look at the other corrections, you will see, and this is one thing that he found, looking at all the versions, Dr. Bernie Powers found that there were about 5,000 vowels and marking differences per version.
1 minute.
100 to 150 consonantal differences or dots per version. You can get this on, you can buy this book here. This looks at 10 of those versions. We're just in London looking between the Hafs and the Warsh, just between that which is around the world today and that which is popular in North Africa. And we've come up with 1,354 differences with 21st century texts of the Quran. So this idea that this comes from God, I think proves not only 1,400 years ago, but even today, they're still changing, they're still correcting, they're still manipulating the text. I would suggest, therefore, that the Quran does not come from God. We're not even sure anymore whether it comes from Muhammad. I would venture to say that it looks like the Quran that we have today was probably started by the time of Abd al-Malik in the late 7th century, then started proliferating in the 8th century, and that's why the manuscripts seem to come from that time, but then was being corrected up until the 9th and 10th century. A book from man, not God.
Thank you, Jay. We appreciate your opening statement, and we want to give Edip an opportunity to open with his 13-minute statement. So, Edip, we're going to go ahead and put the timer on you. I'll give you a warning at 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and 1 minute. You can go ahead and make your statement right now. Your time begins.
Hi. First of all, I would like to get oral permission to share these at my YouTube channel after this is done. What do you think?
Just continue to move forward, and we'll be sure that anything that you have to say.
Okay. Jay, I missed some of your words. Somehow there is a two-way I hear. One is through this website. I want to watch it to see you. The other, Skype. The Skype one, I wish from the other side they basically turn off the sound so that I don't have the echo. This technical request from those who are attending Skype. I asked them to lower the sound from your side. Do you hear me now, Jay?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you fine, Edip.
Okay. I was talking to Jay. Okay, great. I heard you are showing pages. They are old manuscript stuff. They are kind of different. Well, I studied those old manuscripts, and here it is. I have a book on 3 of them. The Osman, the copy that is attributed to Osman in Topkapı, and also Tashkent copy. The difference between them, it is about very minuscule 3-page. Here is the, let me see whether you can see it here. This is 1 page, 3-page like this. This is a very minuscule. Can you please directly show this one? And this is a book published in Turkey by Religious Affairs. Here it is. This is basically comparing the 2 copies. And you are overly exaggerating the minimal differences. And in fact, the recent Birmingham copy also proves that the difference between the today's manuscript and the old manuscript is insignificant. However, I want to get rid of all these speculations and assertions by coming up with a scientific claim that will prove beyond doubt 2 things: that today's the Quran is not the product of human being, plus it is perfectly preserved by God, not people who made up many lies in the name of Prophet Muhammad, which one of them that you showed, it is Bukhari. And I do not believe hadith books. As you know, that Bukhari was written 240 years after Muhammad. In fact, it was not written that time. It has lost the original copies, but 240 years. And we know the Gospels were written 100 years, 120 years after Jesus. Now, let's talk about my evidence. I really do not care about all these historical claims. I see this book in the library or in the middle of nowhere. I pick it up, I look at it, I find it very interesting. In fact, it is beyond interesting. For example, this book does not reflect the common mindset of Arab people of the time, even several centuries after that. This book promotes women's rights, considers slavery as the biggest sin against God, consider all humans as children of Adam as brothers and sisters, promote sharing God's blessing with each other, standing for justice, and establishing peace on earth. And the verses that refers to creation, the creation of the universe or embryology, we find all accurate, none of them reflecting the false ideas of the time. The book scientifically hits all correctly. In fact, the creation of the universe, it starts that the whole universe, earth and skies were 1 point, and later they were separated from each other. And later they will be gathered together like the pages of a book, a closed universe model. And we see the earth is described. I'm not saying it was not known during that time. However, it was not common knowledge, just the opposite of common knowledge, that the earth is round. And many similar verses. You don't see superstitions in this book like you see in hadith books, volumes of superstitions, and they were written centuries after Muhammad. But even ignore all this. I even not even go speculate on those verses, because there will be room that you will try to interpret, nitpick, even distort the meaning of some verses or words. Here it is. I'm coming at challenging you. Jay, do you hear me, Jay?
Yes, yes.
Beautiful. I'm challenging you with mathematics. This book, which I picked, somehow is supposedly followed by 1 billion people, more than 1 billion people, but change the history. This is one of the book acknowledges this. By whom? Michael Hart. He was a Chicago professor. He had several criteria to include the most influential persons in history, and in top 100 he put Muhammad's name. Whether you like Muhammad or not, Muhammad was guided by this book. According to the very book, he was misguided. He didn't know what is faith, what is book. He was misguided. He was guided by this very book, by this very revelation, and he changed the history to the good. But later, of course, like the history of Christianity, the religious clergymen and idol worshippers, they distorted the message. They started practicing exactly what is the opposite. Quran perhaps is the most read book, but it is the least understood, unfortunately, and the most betrayed book in the world. When you look at the Quran, let me give you a few examples. The word month, shahr, you will find in singular form exactly 12 times. Coincidence? Possible. The word day, yawm, in singular form as yawm means day. How many times do you think we find in the Quran J? Give me a number. I don't hear you. Moderator, please let me hear him.
We have
Go ahead, tell me.
Go
Just
ahead.
tell me.
Can you hear him, Jay? Go ahead, respond, Jay.
Yes, just go ahead, tell us.
We have 5 minutes left.
Okay, you didn't say it. I want you volunteer a number for the word day. Come on.
Anybody got a number? 365.
Yes, you got it. This very book that I saw in the middle of the street, which is really people who supposedly follow him, follow this book, are backward, oppressor, misogynist, but I see this book is very different what they are preaching and practicing. And this book, these just 2 words pulled my attention, is in the library. If you pick hundreds of books, you will not find any of them has this interesting harmony between astronomical fact and the frequency of these 2 words. Let me continue. In 1969, when the United States landed the moon, my friend Dr. Khalifa wanted to translate the Quran, and then when he translated the first chapters, which is 7 verses, he came across ALM, 3 letters, which Muslims throughout centuries, they didn't know the meaning of these letter combinations or number combinations, which initialized 29 chapters, 14 letters, 14 different combinations in the beginning of 29 chapters. And then he put them in the computer, 2nd generation computer, mainframe computers, and he got the frequency of these letters. His initial observation was these letters are the most frequent in the chapters they initialize. For example, the letter Q, Qaf, in chapter of 50, in the beginning of chapter 50 and 42 is the highest in frequency in these 2 chapters. However, this was a very first time in history someone discovered the relationship between these letters and the text following the letters. However, in 1974, the beginning of 1974, he discovered that those numbers are not, some of them odd, some of them even, some of them big, some of them small. They are multiple of 19. And then he discovered mathematical code, which this book, basically it is the most updated. And let me see, okay. This is my friend. God bless him. He was killed by
We have 2 minutes, Edip. 2 minutes
terrorists. I know. I want to give you a few examples that this proves beyond doubt that this book could not be written by Prophet Muhammad. Written, I mean, I know that Muhammad himself wrote the book because the Quran says, but it was a revelation to him. The stories about Muhammad was illiterate, could not write, is a big lie, one of the biggest lies they agreed upon. The Quran says the opposite, and I prove it beyond doubt that Muhammad was literate. He wrote the revelation first, and then this revelation is letter by letter protected. This 19, I don't know, we don't have chance here to really give to the examples. And I hope that, Jay, we come together face to face, discuss these issues solely over the examples. And I believe that if you are an honest person, you will come to the conclusion that this Quran cannot be human-made. It is absolutely divine. It is challenged to you and every Christian and every hypocrite and every so-called Muslim, which they have nothing to do with Islam, really. They are Sunni or Shiite. Thank you. Do I have a few minutes? Do you have 1 minute?
You have 1 minute left, yes.
Lovely, 1 minute. Let me give you two examples. The letter Sad initializes 3 chapters. Chapter 7, Elif Lam Mim Sad, it is the 4th letter. Chapter Kaf Ha Ya Ain Sad, chapter 19, which is called Mary, and chapter Sad 38. The frequency of the Sad in these 3 chapters, which initializes, is 152, multiple of 19, 8 times 19. But later, years later, we discovered there was 1 extra in today's manuscripts. However, when we check the old manuscripts, well,
and that's our time, Edip.
Seconds down.
That's our time, Edip.
Continue.
But we thank you for your opening statement. And right now we have to go to a break. We want to remind you that there's no other channel that's bringing to you live debates as well as pertinent information like Trinity Channel and ABN. And we depend upon your partnerships and your support. So while we go to break, if the Lord puts it in your heart, you can go ahead and sow a seed and sponsor the ABN and Trinity Channel with the number that's at the bottom of your screen or with the P.O. box or email address. We're going to go to break. When we get back, more from Jay and Edip after this.
Trinity Channel is now publicly streaming on Roku. There is no need for a code anymore, and through Roku, you can watch us 24/7 on your TV. You can find us through 2 ways on Roku. The first way is through the streaming channel category. The second way is by searching for Trinity Channel in your search bar. For more information, please call the numbers at your screen. Coming soon, the new show that will be launched this summer will be called The Root of Islam. The show will feature Christian Prince as the main speaker, along with many other speakers that will join him. The first show will be on Wednesday, June 29th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ABN and Trinity Channel Live. The topic will be Ramadan and human blood sacrifices. If you have any questions, please call the numbers at your screen or visit our website at trinitychannel.com.
To all our viewers, you can now watch our shows on the following platforms, such as Android tablets, Android boxes, Android phones, a Chromecast stick, your smart TV, or a Roku stick. For more information, please call the number on your screen or visit us at trinitychannel.com.
ABN viewers, to watch free reruns of our marathon shows, apologetic shows, and English programs, go to www.youtube.com and type Trinity Channel. Here at ABN, we make it easier for viewers like you to watch programs. For more information, call us at 248-416-1300.
And you're watching the Trinity Channel here at ABN. We welcome you back to tonight's debate. Is the Quran from God or is it from man? We have our 2 debaters that are with us, Edip Yuksel as well as Jay Smith, and they've been discussing for the last half hour or so, does the Quran have discrepancies And if so, are those discrepancies insignificant? And is it from a divine source or is it from a human source? This is now our second round. To begin our second round, we're going to have a 10-minute rebuttal from Jay, followed by a 10-minute rebuttal from Edip, and then we're going to go into an 8-minute crossfire, where each debater is going to have 2 minutes to reply one to the other. As usual, I will go ahead and notify you at the 5-minute, 2-minute, and 1-minute mark when your time is expiring. Jay, you can go ahead and take it from here. You have 10 minutes.
So good to talk to you finally, and thank you for your passion, for your eagerness. Let's go through some of the claims you made. You did talk about the Quran as being inimitable. It's probably the answer to everything that we need today. You'd mentioned that it's against slavery. I don't think it is. If you look at Surah 4, Ayah 24, it's very clear. That which your right hand possesseth, a man can have as many as he wants. Those are slaves. You said that it establishes peace. I want you to show me one verse in the Quran that says you can have peace with me, a Christian. You can have peace with other Muslims, but not me as a Christian. And what are you going to do with Surah 9:5, which is the sword verse? What are you going to do with Surah 9:29, which is you're to make war upon us, the people of the book? What are you going to do with Surah 8, Ayah 39? You're to slay the unbeliever until there is no more fitna, unbelief in the land. What are you going to do with Surah 47, Ayah 4, which says to cut off the heads of the unbeliever? I could go on. There's about 149 of these verses. I think that's enough to give you the idea. You said that it has lots of science, that it talks about creation. Yet when you look at Surah 7 and you look at Surah 41, in one case you have 7 days, in another case you have 8 days. Actually 6 days versus 8 days. So even the Quran contradicts itself on the days of creation. Embryology. I would suggest that the 4 stages of embryology that you get in the Quran are nothing miraculous. Those were first created by Galen, who is a Jewish embryologist in the 2nd century. In fact, he was in Nishapur. His works were well known in Ctesiphon, which later became today Baghdad. And so it would have been known and used in that time. And he has the exact same 4 stages in the 2nd century that is found in the Quran. The problem is he made a mistake. The last 2 stages, one does not follow another. You don't have bones before flesh. That mistake is also incorporated into the Quran. You went on and you talk about that it has no superstitions, that it's not using other material. I would suggest that much of the Quran is borrowed. Take a look at the stories. There are many stories that have been borrowed from other sources. Let's just give you some examples. Surah 5, Ayah 31, the story of Cain and Abel. That we know has nothing to do with the biblical text. That comes from the Targum of Jonathan ben Uzziah. The very next verse, verse 32, that many people like to quote, that he who takes the blood of one is as if he takes the blood of all, but he who saves the blood of all is if he saves the blood of all. He saves the blood of all. That comes straight out of the Mishnah Bar Sanhedrin, written in the 5th century, interestingly, which incorporates the story of Cain and Abel and the raven. That then is incorporated into the Quran. And it's fascinating, again, because if you want to talk about peace, why don't you go to the very next verse, 33, which says those who stand against Allah and his prophet, crucified, they've been cut off their hands and feet on opposite ends. Let's go through some of the other stories. The story of Solomon and Sheba in Surah 27, Ayah 17 to 44, almost word for word, and the hoopoe bird. It's an amazing story, but it's almost exactly taken out of the 2nd Talmud of Esther, a 2nd century apocryphal account, Jewish apocryphal writing. Surah 21, Ayah 51 to 71, the story of Abraham, placing him in Mecca. I had no idea Abraham lived in Mecca. Nonetheless, that story is found in the Mishnah of Rabbah. Again, another 2nd century apocryphal account. And there is example after example of these stories that have been borrowed into the Quran, that are borrowed from other sources from before, that are not considered to be authoritative in the Jewish community. The stories about Jesus Christ, most of them are sectarian writings borrowed from outside the Christian community, yet they find their way into the Quran. Then you talked about the one reason, in fact, from what I'm getting from what you said, the one area that you would say that underlines this supernatural context of the Quran is its mathematics, this miracle of the mathematics. We call that numerology. It's a science that is well known around the world. And you looked and you give a number of examples of this mathematical miracle that's in the Quran. You talked about the days, that the number of days is 365. That's interesting. If that is a miracle, then why is it that the Quran and also Islam follows the lunar calendar? Why is it not follow those 365 days? There's a problem right there. You talked about the A, the L, and the Mim, the three letters. That is true. They are a mystery. Even scholars today don't know it. And you said that Rashad, your friend, Khalifa, is the one that introduced it or the one that discovered it. If that is so, why is he not respected for it? And more than that, why is it he's the first one to have discovered it? What about the intervening 1,400 years that no one else knew about it? You wanted to, and you asked, and then you went to the number 19. I think this is really what you're getting at. And I understand you've written an entire book on this miracle of the number 19. This number 19 keeps coming up. It was done a number of years ago. Bilal Phillips destroyed it. It was resurrected by Shabir Ali. He introduced it at the debate we had in 2014.
5 minutes.
Thank you. And now you're resurrecting it again. And what you have done is you've gone to Surah 74. Now, I have your Quran with me. Here it is. So I'm going to quote your own Quran. I'm just going to go through and show you a problem I have with it. You've gone to Surah 74 to verse 19, which just says, and let me just read it so we do have it, so I'm correct. I'm referring to it correctly. Surah 74, which says that, interestingly, because all the previous verses are very quick and to the point. In that Surah 74, it's all just little phrases, until you get to verse 30. On it is 19, and it stops there. And then the next verse, we have made the guardians of the fire to be angel controllers, and we did not make their number except as a test for those who have rejected, to convince those who were given the book. So you're to convince me, a Christian. This is to convince us, this number 19. Although it doesn't say that here, you're imposing that into it here. And that's why you want to look at the number 19. Now, how do you do that? Well, you look all through and you find all kinds of derivations of number 19. But I think one of the cleverest ones that you have found are the number of surahs that you have, or the number of verses, that you have in the Quran. Now, we know that the Quran has 6,236 verses in the current Quran. That's the 1924 Quran. That is not the case for any of the manuscripts that I held up. You don't find those verses in the Topkapi or the Samarkand or the Ma'il or the Huzayni. Interesting, you don't find that same versification. In fact, have you noticed every one of those that I have just announced, they don't even have verses. Verses were only introduced much later. So you're talking about the 1924 Quran. This is less than 100 years ago. That Quran has 6,236. Now, you've got to find a derivation of 19 in that. You can't. So what do? Well, here in Surah 9, you have taken out 2 verses. Surah 9, in every Quran that I've ever read, has 129 verses. In your Quran, it only goes up to 127. Why did you take out those 2 verses? To get 19? No, you still don't get 19. So why have you taken those 2 verses out? Well, then you say that at the beginning of every surah, and that's true, at the beginning of every surah is a bismillah. So you suggest that those are verses as well. Why you came to that conclusion, I don't know. So you've got 113 bismillahs, because 113 of the surahs in the Quran have a bismillah at the very beginning. And you insinuated that every one of them is a verse. So you add 113 to 6,234. You still don't have a derivation of 19. You've got to, therefore, take off one more to get 6,346. You need 6,346 in order to get the 19. So you find another bismillah that it's not at the beginning of every surah, and that's in Surah 27, Ayah 30. So you go back to Surah 27, Ayah 30. Let me see if I've got it here. Surah 27, Ayah 30. And there you found another bismillah. Here it is. I'll just hold it up so everybody can see it. In the middle of the chapter. So therefore you add that one to the 113, so you get 114. And by doing that, by adding it, you actually get more than you need. So then you subtract it. Wait a minute, we added or subtracted? See, here's the confusion. What have you done with Surah 27, Ayah 30? You first say you've added, then you've subtracted it, and by subtracting it, that means you're subtracting 2 verses, Surah 9, you're subtracting the verse in Surah 27, Ayah 30, and you get now 6,346. But you haven't subtracted. It's still here. Let me show it to you. You still got it in your Quran. I don't know what Muslims would do with this, but I know what I would do if someone had done this to my Bible.
1 minute.
You cannot take verses out willy-nilly like that just because you don't like them. You can't therefore try to find and create verses that don't exist, the 113 Bismillah, and then find one that has found its way into Surah 27 halfway through and decide you're not sure whether you should subtract it or add to it, but you do need to get that 6,346. And then you divide that by 19, you get 334. To me, that's manipulation. To me, you're extracting and adding. You say, and I know you're going to tell me that the reason you took these two verses out is because there's only one witness to these two verses. The problem is, Surah 27, Ayah 30. I'm sorry, Surah 33, Ayah 23 also only has one witness, yet you left that one in. So you're not being consistent. So even your reasoning is not consistent. Now, we don't do that to the Bible, and thank goodness, I don't know of any other Muslim that would agree with what you've done here. You cannot expunge the Quran to create a miracle of your own doing. It's nothing more than man manipulating again. It's, again, another man-made miracle.
Thank you, Jay, for your rebuttal. We want to go ahead and give Edip an opportunity to do so. Edip, you have 10 minutes. As I did with Jay, I'll let you know at the 5, 2, and 1 when your time is expiring. Your clock starts now.
Hi, Jay. You throw so many things, and dealing with them, each of them will take really time. And you are pretty good at that, to confuse people. And you did it. Something very simple about the number of chapters and bismillahs or verses in the Quran. You manage it. If I listen to you, if I don't know about the subject, or anyone who doesn't have simple idea about it, my gosh, these guys are manipulated. No, sir. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, the first beginning of the Fatiha is the first verse, and it is numbered. But the other, if you look at it, they are not numbered. They repeat, but they are not numbered as the first verse. And that was one of the topic of major discussion, why it is like that. And there is one also missing in the beginning of one chapter, and one is extra in the chapter that you showed, in chapter 27. You know, all these 4 peculiarities about Basmala is fantastically explained by the mathematical structure of the Quran. Because all of them are verses, we count all the Basmalas when we count the number of verses. It is 6,346. Yes, it is with the deletion of 2 added sentences to the end of chapter 9. The mathematical structure of the Quran is so precise that shows it is like mathematical codes have error correction functions. Through these error corrections, we were able to find out among more than 300 letters a misspelled letter and pinpoint it mathematically, and then challenge the scholars, Sunni and Shiite scholars, and they would challenge us back with hadith supporting the misspelling. And then we go back to the oldest manuscripts like Tashkent copy. We find that the Tashkent copy supports the mathematical structure which we predicted without even seeing that copy, and then proves that the man-made manuscripts could have human error, but God did not let the Quran to humans because the Quran is preserved by God. Inna nahnu nazzalna al-dhikra wa inna lahu lahafizun. Its emphasis is 5 times on God. It basically says the verse, not you, not your great ancestors or the friends of Muhammad, they will not be the protecting this. I will be the protecting. And it is unique protection. I want to come that because it is very important. I will give you 2 examples. Let me give you 2 examples, and I will go back to your criticism of the Quran regarding slavery, about violence and all this stuff, which you are very good at distorting. 1, I mentioned that Sad, the frequency of the letter Sad in the beginning of chapters with which it initialized is 152 according to our counting. However, in today's manuscripts, you will find 153, which is 1 more than multiple of 19. We predicted this before we saw the old manuscripts. When I first heard this, I got very upset. I was in Turkey. I even blamed Rashad Khalifa for distorting the Quran. I thought if you change one letter, then one word could be changed, one sentence could be changed. It's slippery slope. But I went to Suleimaniye library, I got access to Tashkent copy, and I found it exactly in chapter 7, verse 69. The word bastatan is not spelled as it is in today's manuscripts with sad. With sad, it would be one extra. It was spelled with sin. And interestingly, there are 3 hadiths trying to defend the misspelling, the spelling error. It seems in the past there were discussion about this, and those who defended the error, the erroneous spelling, they fabricated 3 hadiths saying the Jibreel, the angel, revealed these words to me with sad, bastatan with sad. In chapter 7, verse 69. Look at the manuscripts in your hand. You will see sad, and over it a little sin is written. It shows that little sin is in fact a historical correction. Someone saw it corrected, but later people did not know it was correction. They made up stories about it. Another example, a couple of years ago, in Turkey, I discussed mathematical of the Quran.
5 minutes?
Yes, mathematical of the Quran with a hadith professor, a professor of hadith, means the volumes of lies attributed to Prophet Muhammad after Muhammad, like Sunni sources, Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmizi, Ibn Majah, Abu Dawud, Ibn Hanbal. These are the 6 idols they added to the Quran, and later volumes of other sectarian jurisdictions. Shiites have their own lies. And they distorted the message of the Quran, of course, to the opposite. Now, I discussed with him one of the 3 arguments against 19 was, Edip, you are adding an elif to wahid. Wahid means God is one. Waw, elif, ha, dal. It adds up to 19, geometrical value of this. And says you are adding elif. In manuscripts, today's manuscript says there is no elif. In fact, the geometrical value of it, he said, is 18. In order to fit it, you added elif. That time, I didn't have any old manuscripts, archaeological evidence to support it. I said the mathematical code has proven itself is so incredible and beyond human capacity. In the past, it helped us to make some error corrections, like the word bastatan in chapter 7, 69, verse 69. I said, I believe that this should be with elif in oldest manuscripts. And then after that, first time I checked internet. Initially, I made it big deal. I thought I need to go check all the available 7 manuscripts in London, in Cairo, in Moscow, in Istanbul. But when I came, I got upset with myself. I said, why I couldn't produce this guy with evidence? I checked the internet. In 1 hour, I found a fragment containing the word wahid for God, means God is one. I found it first time with my eyes. It was written with elif. I posted it on internet. A reader of mine in France, he had done research on this. He sent me more than 2,000 examples in museums and private collections, fragments, means several pages of the Quran, containing the word wahid, each written exactly with elif. Wow, elif, ha, dal, adding up to 19. This is the message of the Quran. Now I challenge you, find a book in the library and then find a mathematical code in it. Let it be several hundred letters and say these letters must be misspelled. In older version must be correct. And then someone or you find it later afterwards, exactly it is the way you predicted. These two alone proves that the Quran is perfectly mathematically coded, and it's protected, preserved by God to the unit level, atomic level, which is letter. Let me give you a few examples of the mathematical. I want to deal with your, because the issues are so too much. Slavery. You said there is slavery in the Quran. You gave verse 424. I discussed this issue with Robert Spencer. He is enemy of Muhammad over the Quran. He wrote several best-selling books on this. And And they initially came up with hadith like you do, because this information you got, ma malakat aymanukum, in today's translations of the Quran is absolutely mistranslated as those who you possess, your hand possess, means slaves. It is not about slaves. Ma malakat aymanukum, ayman is the plural of yamin. If you know a little bit Arabic, my friend, check. Yamin means word, means contract. Ayman means contract. This contractual relation, marriage with people. It is not slaves. In fact, slavery is the biggest sin according to the Quran, my friend. Because slavery, if you have a slave, you claim to be the Lord. And the Quran says there is no Lord except God. Pharaoh was rejected by Moses and by God because he committed the biggest sin. He claimed to be the Lord of the people. He made them abd to himself. Abd means slave. We cannot be slave. We cannot be servant of anyone except God, our creator. Therefore, slavery violates the first principle of Islam, La ilaha illallah. There is no a single verse justifying slavery. To the opposite, in your book, St. Paul is the one promoting slavery. And it is shame that you accuse the Quran.
Edip, your time is up for your rebuttal. We're going to move into what is called an 8-minute crossfire. And let me explain just how the next 8 minutes is going to work. Beginning with Jay, each of you will be given 2 minutes to rebuttal the other individual. We ask that during this time, no questions be asked. You just simply rebuttal what the other individual says. You have 2 minutes, and because we only have 8 minutes, I have to stop you after 2 minutes and let you give the other person the next opportunity. And when you're at 30 seconds, I'll let you know that there are 30 seconds left in your rebuttal. So for the next 2 minutes, we're going to begin with Jay, then move to Edip, then back to Jay, then back to Edip, and then we'll cut to a break and we'll come back for the next part of this debate. So Jay, you can go ahead and begin your 2 minutes now.
Okay, let me just get something quick. I can actually refer to what he's just said, or these have to be new ideas?
You can refer to what he just said. Absolutely. You can take it anywhere you want to go.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's just ask the question. You still haven't answered why you took those 2 verses out of Surah 9. We would like to know why you've expunged verse 128 and 129, and then why you have suddenly realized or assumed that the Bismillahs are verses in and of themselves. That I'd like to get an answer from you. Also, you're talking about, you talked about that Surah 7, Ayah 69, that there are spelling errors in other manuscripts. I'm so glad you finally admitted that there are errors in the manuscripts. It's been hard. It's taken me a whole hour to get you to admit this. It would be good to know what you're going to do with these errors, and the fact that you still haven't asked which manuscript are you referring to for this Miracle 19. Which manuscript are you talking about? You went and you did talk about the Samarkand manuscript in Tashkent, and you said that therefore it was the one that you found one of the miracles of Wahid. The problem is, I don't know if you know, but the Samarkand manuscript does have Surah 9, Ayah 128 and 129. We've looked at it. We've got it. We've got facsimiles of it. So you've got a difficulty there, because if it doesn't have these, then of course you're going to have a problem with Surah 9, Ayah 120 and 29 in your number 19 machinations. The difficulty I'm finding is that you seem to be jumping around from manuscript to manuscript, but you haven't really suggested how to deal with the fact that not one of these manuscripts come from the 7th century. They only begin to appear during the time of Al-Walid, except for the palimpsest that's found in the Sana that would be from Abd al-Malik. You haven't even begun to answer that.
30 seconds.
And I'd like to know what you're going to do with the fact that if you have a manuscript that was given to a man named Muhammad, supposedly between 610 and 632, why is it we have to wait 60 years before we even see one manuscript that exists, and it is not complete? It has a palimpsest that doesn't agree with the superior text. I want you to answer that question. The fact that there's nothing around for 60 years, and then when they start to proliferate, I should say, you see the 6 manuscripts.
We have to move to Edip.
To share this at my YouTube because I have the right. I'm participating in this. I want to make this statement here. As far as for Jay, previously you accused Islam to be violent. It is one of the biggest lies against Islam, means making. And you change the verse out of the context like Salafis do. And you can change the meaning of every text by taking the verses out of the context. Said there is no verse in the Quran regarding people of the book have peace with them. It is another big distortion. The Quran says you can marry them, the people of the book. Marrying means you fall in love with a girl or man. You can eat their food. It is one of the biggest lies you are promoting. It is not right, my dear friend. And as far as for chapter, you say there is about crucifying and cutting, chopping down. That verse is in passive form. It doesn't say you believers do. It is the end of those who go around and kill people like ISIS. Kill people, they will end up being crucified or killed and or arrested, captive. This is exactly about that. This is the law. If you live by sword, you die by sword, like many Christians lived up by sword. You go to church, you say peace, but you come out, you vote, for the biggest warmongers and more invasions and more wars. Exactly this is about those people. Here it is, exactly what's happening against ISIS. They end up what they got. They got violent. They got violence against them. You commit violence, you commit people in other part of the world, you get what you deserve. Exactly, they deserve what they got. You deserve what you got because it is hypocrisy over there. Now, my dear friend, the Quran says, I read you some in manifesto, manifesto for Islamic reform.
Yeah, 2 minutes have expired, Edip. It has to go back to Jay. You'll have 2 minutes after his.
My questions.
Go ahead, Jay. 2 minutes.
I'm still going to wait, Edip. I want you to ask me, what are you going to do with that gap of 60 years? What are you going to do with the fact that nothing appears in the 7th century? Please answer the question. You've got a problem here, and Muslims do not want to talk about the fact that there's nothing there. There's nothing there for the Quran. There's no reference to Muhammad in any Arab sources until 691. There's no reference to any city called Mecca until 741. That's over 100 years after the death of Muhammad. There is an enormous gap that's missing here, and I want you to answer that before moving on and manipulating this text, because what you've done is you've said Surah 5, Ayah 33 is only those who wage war. That's true, but read the rest of the verse. Let me read what it says. The recompense for those who may wage war against Allah and His Messenger and do mischief in the land. Now, what's that mean? Do mischief in the land is only that they shall be killed or crucified, or their hands and their feet be cut off from opposite sides, or be exiled from the land. Now, that's just one of many verses you could go to. I don't think anybody who is watching this would believe that the Quran is a peaceful book, or that it only says peace. Regardless of whether you can marry Christians, you can only marry them if they convert and become Muslims. What do you do about apostates? About those who want to leave Islam? Surah 4, Ayah 89. Look at all the 4 schools of law, the Hanbali, the Hanafi, the Maliki, the Shafi school, all 4 schools, which you reject. I can see why you have to reject them, because they actually exegete what's in the Quran from Surah 4, Ayah 89. You will see Surah 9, Ayah 66, Surah 6, Ayah 106. All of these do talk about those who want to reject Islam. And the fact that almost all the traditions that you reject as well support this notion, which is in the Quran, you can see it is a book of violence. Talk about your Prophet Muhammad himself. What did he do to the Jews in Medina? The Banu Quraysh family, the Banu Nadir family, the Banu Kainuka family, especially the Banu Quraysh family. What did he do in 627 to them? Are you going to reject that story as well?
Time's up, Jay. We want to go ahead and allow Edip to respond with 2 minutes, and then after his response, we're going to go to a break, and it will allow, after we come from that break, you to pick up the discussion to take it further. Edip, 2 minutes.
Jay, you are doing exactly like Robert Spencer did, but at the end of the argument, he lost, and you will see the argument, warmongers, you will see how it starts exactly like you, distorting the verses taken out of the context. Just give me one example, because all of the time you are doing, my dear friend. 489, you recited the verse 489, but just 490, just after that start, with exception, except for those who join a people between whom you have a covenant, or those who come to you with reluctance in their chests to fight you, or to fight their own people. It's obvious these people are aggressive, they kill many people, you fight against them, but with the exception, when they give up fighting, or they seek refuge in a group, among a group that you have covenant with. Had God willed, he would have given them strength and they would have fight you. But if they retired from you and did not fight you and they offer you peace, then God does not make for you a way against them. You, unfortunately, like many of you Christians, I want you to be honest, accept the truth so that truth set you free, my dear friend. Don't be against the Quran. The Quran praises Jesus. The Quran says Jesus was a messenger of God, came for peace and justice. You are in a very misguided way because you follow Sunnis and Shiites. You take their words and distortions and their hadiths and you use them against the Quran. It is a big injustice you are doing against the Quran and Muhammad. What Muhammad you are against has nothing to do with Muhammad of the Quran. And what you are against right now discussing, you are criticizing Sunni and Shiite distortions, and then you take the verses out of the context as just I showed to you.
Our 2 minutes is up. Edip, thank you for your rebuttal. We're going to go ahead and cut to a break right now before we enter our third round of this debate concerning, is the Quran from God or is it from man? We want you to remember before we go to break that there are no other stations bringing to you information and live debates like the Trinity Channel and ABN. Of course, our operations are dependent upon your generous support and your generous giving. So as we cut to break, pray and ask the Lord if you put it in your heart to send support to ABN. And if he does, the number is at the bottom of the screen. You can call, email, or send your love from the address that's provided. Stay tuned, and more from Jay and Edip when we return.
ABN in the Trinity Channel on your iPhone and iPad. Search for ABN Sat in the App Store. You can watch all the following channels: the Arabic Channel, the English Trinity Channel, the Worship Channel, the Surith Channel, the Kurdish Channel, the Al-Quddus Channel, the Prayer Channel, and a special channel for Europe and the Middle East. For more information, please call the number on your screen or visit us at trinitychannel.com.
Coming soon, the new show that will be launched this summer will be called The Root of Islam. The show will feature Christian Prince as the main speaker, along with many other speakers that will join him. The first show will be on Wednesday, June 29th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ABN and Trinity Channel Live. The topic will be Ramadan and human blood sacrifices. If you have any questions, please call the numbers at your screen or visit our website at trinitychannel.com.
Thank you for watching and supporting ABN channels. If God places it on your heart, please call now to donate at 248-416. Thank you for watching and supporting ABN channels. If God places it on your heart, please call now to donate at 248-416-1300 or visit us at www.trinitychannel.com or send checks to our P.O. Box 724, Walled Lake, Michigan 48390. Every moment of every day, ABN is producing and recording new programs. We need you to help us hand in hand by sending your donations to our P.O. Box 724, Walled Lake, Michigan 48390 or visit us at www.trinitychannel.com or call us at 248-416-1300.
To the Trinity Channel and ABN, and you are watching our live debate. Have you ever wondered or asked yourself, is the Quran from God or is it written by man? Today we're seeking to answer that question from two debaters from around the world. Jay Smith and Edip Yuksel are with us via Skype, and we're going to continue this debate they've been talking about different things such as the source of the Quran. Has it been altered? Has it not been altered? Does it have discrepancies? Does it not have discrepancies? If it does, are those discrepancies significant to any level? And more than that, we've been talking about interpretation. Is the Quran a violent book? Is it not a violent book? What school of thought should the Quran be interpreted from? And so our debaters are going back and forth discussing these questions. And now to our debaters, we're going to begin our third round, which will begin again with an 8-minute crossfire, similar to what we had in the second round. You'll be given 2 minutes each to either present something that you would like to talk further about or continue where the discussion just ended before we went on break. Like I did before, I'll notify you 30 seconds before your time expires, and then we will move forward. I want to say to those that are viewing us at home that at 5 o'clock, we're going to go ahead and open up the lines, about 5 o'clock-ish, open up the lines for you to call in and ask Edip or Jay questions that you might have, either from the past or questions that formed while you were watching the debate. Feel free to call in at the number at the bottom of the screen at about 5 o'clock. Now, to begin this 8-minute crossfire, we asked Jay to go ahead and start us. You'll have 2 minutes. You can go ahead and begin with anything you'd like right now.
Edip, I like your passion. It's great that you're getting upset, but I can see why you're getting upset, because I just now opened up Surah 4, Ayah 24, and I looked at it again, and you said that this is a contract. Now, you can't have it both ways. This is about marriage. It says, also forbidden to you are women already married, except those whom your right hand possesseth. Are you saying if this is not a slave, then this is somebody that you possess, which is adulteress? So either way, you've got it. You've got it wrong. So is she an adulterer or is she a slave? You can't have it both ways. You can see. You be careful about how you interpret that. Interestingly, you're saying that I'm using the Sunni in the Shiite distortions is the word you use. You've pretty well just thrown out all Muslims on earth today. And you've also thrown out 1,400 years of translation of this book. And you're saying that for 1,400 years, the Arabs did not know how to translate their own book. And suddenly you, a Kurd, who doesn't even speak Arabic as your mother tongue, suddenly know how to read it or translate it better than they do. Or do you really mean that? Because there's nobody, I don't know of any translation that would agree with what you've done in Surah 9 and agree with what you've done in Surah 27 in your book. Now, you still haven't answered my question, and I'm really waiting for you to do so. I want you to tell me what happened to the earliest Quran. How can you even say it's from Muhammad when there's no manuscript that even exists from his century? You say that the Quran is a book of peace, and I can see in your introduction that you have gone about through methodologically trying to find peace through all these verses. And you've done a great job of changing, manipulating.
30 seconds.
But what you haven't done is you haven't gone back to the Prophet's own life as an example of that. Tell me and show me what he did between 624 and 632, the last 8 years of his life. Look and see what he did to the Banu Qurayza family, the 800 men whose throats he slit in one afternoon because they would not support him. If there's the example of these verses that we're quoting, whether you like my interpretation or not, you certainly cannot confront the Prophet Muhammad's only example.
Edip, you can go ahead with your rebuttal.
Yes. Chapter 424. It is about slaves who are freed. You marry them. It is called contractual marriage. And because they have been slaves, their past history, it is called contractual marriage. Through contract, they are freed and they became wives. It is the word Ayman, which is translated as hands. It is not aid. It is Ayman in Arabic. I know Arabic and I can teach Arabs the classic Arabic. I know English. It's my fifth language. And in Arizona, University of Arizona, my article composition got first place among 3,000 American students, okay? I know Arabic scholarly well more than most of Arabs, and I prove it through the Quran. I use the language of the Quran, the context of the Quran, the usage of other words to show that they are doing distortions. And the Ayman is the plural of Yamin, means contracts. It is with your contractual relationship, you have rights against towards them. And for example, I give you one example. chapter 47, verse 4, it is mistranslated as chopping their neck. But the word over there is wadarba riqab. Riqab is the plural of raqaba. Raqib means it's
30
God's
seconds.
name. It doesn't mean neck. It means the one who observe and control. Muraqaba comes from the same root. Throughout the Quran, this word is translated as control. Then when it comes here, they translate it as neck, which is in the Quran, the word neck is unuq, and it is mistranslation. You follow the Sunni teachings, not the Quran's teachings. In your criticism, Beni Qurayza is another big lie and insult. I have an article at 19.org on this subject.
Time is up, Edip. We need to go ahead and give Jay his 2 minutes. Go ahead, Jay.
Terrific. That's great that he's now saying that slaves somehow can have a contract with their owner. By definition, a slave can't have a contract. By definition, a slave has no rights. So what is this contract you're talking about? A slave is a slave is a slave is a slave. The fact that the right hand possess it means that they own it other and beyond other people, that no one can take it from them. There's the contract, that slave belongs to them, not to someone else. I'm proud of you for getting first place in Arizona. That may say something more about Arizona than it says something about the Arab speakers. I'm not asking about whether or not you got first place in Arizona. Are you a better Arab translator than the last 1,400 years of Arab translation? That's all I'm asking. Please make sure that you quote me right on that. And as far as Surah 47, Ayah 4, you're the only one that translates that way. Again, it's fascinating when you look at these two Qurans. Yours may be the bigger one, but you certainly do not have the better translation. Now, every other Quran does say that it is to cut off the heads in Surah 47, Ayah 4. I'm so glad I don't even have to have this kind of debate with Jesus Christ. Have you noticed? We don't have this problem with the New Testament. Our gospel tells us to put away the sword. Our gospel tells us to free the slave. Our gospel tells us to love our enemies. Our gospel really is the one of peace. If you want peace, you better come on back home. This is the kind of discussion you can only level at not only the Quran, you have to level it at Muhammad. Please answer me the question about Muhammad. Why is it Muhammad had slaves? Why is it Muhammad was the one that actually had so many women? Why is it Muhammad didn't even keep to his own revelation? It says in Surah 4, Ayah 3, that a man can have up to 4 wives. Muhammad had anywhere from 9 to 12 wives. He didn't even follow his own revelation. I don't know of any prophet in the history of the Bible that did not follow his own revelation. Thank God for my Bible. Thank God for the gospel, and thank God for the gospel of peace. I don't believe that you can find peace in this book. You haven't convinced me yet, and I don't think you've convinced anybody that's watching this show. Please, help us with that one.
Edip, go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Well, the Quran says the ingrates, the Muslims, they do not free the slaves. First, you free the slaves, and then you marry the slaves. This will be contractual marriage relationship. Very simple. But I will not be able to basically respond every distortions you make, my dear friend. You say, well, 1,400 years, first Arabs understood this way. You don't have any proof about 1,400 years. The Bukhari, for example, as you say, is 240 years after, which major distortions started with the codification of hadith. For example, the word ummi is used in the Quran. It means, if you look at it, you don't need to know Arabic. Put X, the word ummi, you will find out it is a contrast against people of the book, and ummi, Gentile. It is about Gentile. The Quran says Muhammad knew how to write. You didn't know how to, you didn't read any book before this, but you wrote and write, the Quran says. But they mistranslated the meaning of the word. Why? There is motivation. I don't need to be a Christian scholar to find out that for many, many centuries, Christian scholars lied to Christians. For example, let me tell you about the number of lies you fabricated. Here is my definition description of Christianity. Imagine a religion that its members worship the murder weapon, perform rituals to pretend that they are drinking the blood and flesh of their heroic victim, claim that 1 + 1 + 1 equals to 1, adopt a word as their name, which is used by none of the early followers, misspell and mispronounce the name of their hero, follow someone's teaching who is prophetically condemned by their hero, this Pharisee, son of Pharisee, accept a formula that was coined by appointed commission 325 years after the founder, Nicene Conference. Sing
Edip,
love
your time
and
is
peace.
up. We have to go and move forward. We're going
Let me
to
finish
go
this
into
one.
a
Let me finish
5-minute
this one.
rebuttal right now. And we want to go ahead and give Jay the opportunity to take 5 minutes in rebuttal. Edip, you'll have the opportunity to come back with a 5-minute rebuttal of your own after his, followed by another 5-minute rebuttal by Jay, and then finally another 5-minute rebuttal by Edip. I will let you gentlemen know when you are at 2 minutes and when you're at 1 minute, and you can continue in any direction that you would like. Jay, your 5 minutes begins now.
Yeah, I want to thank Edip for what you have said so far. It's fascinating. I'm holding your Quran right now. This is the Quran that you have translated, and it's fascinating because there's almost as many notes in here as there is the Quran. And I think the reason is very simple. And you say right in the very beginning, you want to have a Quran that is reformed, that fits the environment today, that is a book of peace, that has commonality between men and women, that has equality between men and women. So you have an agenda when you write this Quran. You say it in the introduction. And I think that's what we're hearing all night tonight. You do have an agenda. You are bending over backwards to find the word, this book here, that fits a 21st century environment, that fits your environment there in Arizona. And I would suggest that what you're doing, and this is one reason why so many Muslims are upset with you, and why they don't accept this book, and why it's not a #1 bestseller, and why it's not doing very well at all in the Muslim market, is because it does not follow true translation processes. You have words like Surah 4, Ayah 34, which is very clear to beat your wife, and that you have found about 18 different references or different explanations for the word daraba. And you choose one of them that fits the environment that you have in Arizona. And so instead of saying beat, which all the translations say, you put, I think you put the word, you must put her away. Fascinating that you use that translation, you use that word, put her aside, rather than beat, whereas everybody else uses beat. And I would suggest what you're doing is that you're trying to sanitize the Quran to bring it into a conformity with the 21st century environment, but not just any 21st century environment. It's very clear you don't like what ISIS is doing. You don't like what the radicals are doing. So you're creating an environment that you like, and that's the environment you find in Arizona. And I would suggest that what you're finding in Arizona is based on a Judeo-Christian model. You like living here. You enjoy the fact that we have equality. You enjoy the fact that we have peace. But where do you think that equality came from? Where do you think that peace came from? It did not come from this book. It came from this book. It's very clear that the peace you're looking at is coming straight out of the gospel of Jesus Christ. The equality you're looking for is not in this book, because in this book, Surah 2, Ayah 282, is very clear that a woman gets half the authority in court. It's Surah 4, Ayah 11, a woman gets half the inheritance of a male. In Surah 4, Ayah 34, a woman can be beaten if the husband doesn't like what she's doing. In Surah 2, Ayah 223, it's very clear there that the woman is nothing more than a tilth for her husband, and a man can go into his tilth at any time. Surah 2, Ayah 230, it's very clear that a man can divorce his wife. This is not egalitarian, because a woman cannot do the same thing simply by saying talaq 3 times. You've already stipulated in the Quran, for a woman to divorce her husband, she has to find reconciliation. Now, what's interesting in Surah 2, Ayah 230, when a man divorces his wife and decides he wants her back again, he has to have her marry another man. That man has to then divorce her before the first man can have her back. That's egalitarian? I don't see that in the Bible. And I don't see that in the gospel of Jesus Christ. And that's why I love the fact that you're strenuously trying to take this Quran and make it like the Bible. You're taking what you already find in the Bible, the equality that is there, the fact that women and men do not have any difference. 1 Corinthians 7, the whole thing on marriage. Look at the marriage in 1 Corinthians 7, and you will see that a woman's body is equal to a man's body. There is no difference between man or woman, slave or Greek, Jew or Gentile, in Galatians 3:28. And the brilliant verse in Ephesians 5:25, where Christ looks at a man and a woman as the same as himself in the church. And as Christ was willing to love the church and die for the church, so a man should be willing to love his wife and die for his wife. What a beautiful comparison we have in the Bible compared to what we see in the Quran. Now, I encourage you, because you are on the right track. The difficulty is you cannot do that with a book that is written down. You cannot impose your own translation. You cannot impose your own meaning that has been the same for 1400 years. And the other thing is, you cannot go to Muhammad to find what you're saying. As I said earlier, and I'd like you to come back on this, where do you find Muhammad doing what you're saying? Where do you find Muhammad being peaceful? Especially to the Jews in Medina. I don't see it, and you still haven't answered me on that. What was he doing with the Banu Kainuka, the Banu Nadir, the Banu Qurayza family? Where is this example of this peace and egalitarian in Muhammad's own life? Certainly with his own wives. Did he allow women to have 4 husbands? No. And so for all these reasons, I would say you're doing a great job as trying to, because of the fact of your background, you do want the right thing. But if you want the right thing, why don't you come home? Why don't you come home to the real book, the bigger book, the better book, the Bible?
Edip, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal. Your time begins now. I'll notify you at 2 and 1 minute. Go ahead.
Okay. So many things. Of course, you are in criticism. You are throwing all these issues. And to respond, one statement accusation you make to expose the distortions or misconceptions will take time. For example, you say in chapter 2, verse 230, word forces wife, or 3 times talaq, someone says woman is divorced. It is another lie created through hadith. Has nothing to do with Quran. Divorce, according to the Quran, look at the verses of the Quran, is a process done through families come together, make decision, and then waiting several months in order one divorce to happen. It is not happens haphazard or when someone is angry, say, I divorce you, 3 talaq. This is absolute distortion of the talaq of the Quran. And verse 49:13 is a response to all your claims to basically import the Sunni Shiite distortions on Quran. Verse 49:13 says, O people, you're being male or female, you're being from this tribe or that tribe, doesn't give you any superiority. Superiority is righteousness, is to be righteous. And the Quran, there is whole chapter, Nisa means woman, is protecting women's right. And if you read the beginning of the translation of the Quran, I showcase about 15 verses mistranslated, and I show the evidences by referring to the verses of the Quran, using those very words they mistranslate. You don't need even to Arabic. I ask the audience, please, this will give you very little snapshot information. You will not get much from here. But go check that translation. You will find it as a PDF. By the way, I don't make money from my books on religion. I don't make a penny from religion. I am not a clergyman. I am a Muslim, a peacemaker. And as far as for this country being freedom, I appreciate this. I am thankful to God to be in this country because I am free. And by the way, the freedom in this country is not because of Christianity, not because Christians are more in power, just the opposite, because they were able to separate. They escaped from Christian oppression from Europe, the founding fathers. Most of them were monotheists or deists. They did not really follow the teaching of the church as you want to be. They in fact escaped from tyranny of the church. They separated. If the Christian church was in power, I wouldn't be that free. Absolutely, I don't believe that, because throughout history, whenever church Christians got power in their hand, religious people, they oppressed, they killed, they tortured people. And the same with the so-called Sunnis and Shiites. Therefore, I do believe that this is fantastic thing. Of course, being this country doesn't mean in every level is perfect, and we have foreign policy which kills millions of people in 1 century, and just in Iraq alone 1 million people we killed. We made great profit for the weapon industry, and we Christian, we said love your enemy and kill your enemy. As far as Bani Qurayza is another big lie. Bani Qurayza, the story about Bani Qurayza, I have an article about that. Muhammad did not kill them. According to the Quran, you cannot kill the captives. Absolutely another big lie. The story with all the details was an old Jewish story about a previous massacre. They exactly used the very same story centuries later, in the Siyar book, they attributed to Prophet Muhammad, and you will see with the sources we show exactly the same numbers, the similar features, and it is another big lie. And but I do accept, after Muhammad, about 30 years later, the sultans, they turned, the Quran says their affairs is based on consultation. And Muhammad's governance in Medina, according to the Quran, from the Quran we learn that he was not a religious leader of Jews, Christians, and pagans there. He was only religious leaders of believers there, but he was a trusted ruler, elected ruler in a federal secular state, which they were a multinational and multi-jurisdiction, multi-laws. Very interesting verses about that, but I believe that most of them you will follow the distortions because it is in your favor.
Time is up. Go ahead, Jay. You have 5 minutes for a rebuttal. Your time begins now.
Oh, that's fascinating. I don't know if you're all watching and seeing how Edip is now taking much of everything that has come down for 1,400 years and retranslating it in his own image. Let me just start with Muhammad. He already said that these are a lie, that he killed the Banu Qurayza family. How do you know this is a lie? And where do you get your authority from? You've already thrown out all of the Siratu Rasulullah written by Ibn Hisham and Ibn Ishaq and Al-Bukhari. You've thrown out all the hadith written by Al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Ibn Dawud. You've thrown out all of the tafsir written by Al-Tabari, Baidawi, Zamakhshari. In fact, you've thrown everything out. So where suddenly are you finding out about Muhammad? Why is it you know something about Muhammad better than Ibn Hisham did? Or certainly those who are writing, yes, 200 years after the fact. You weren't even there. You never knew the man. You lived 1,400 years later. Where are you going for your authority that Muhammad was suddenly benign and benevolent? That Muhammad did not have slaves, that Muhammad bought and then sold them? Where are you getting these ideas from, that he did kill any Banu Qurayza? According to every tradition I know, and I can give you 5 sources, I've just given you the 5 sources, Muhammad did kill 800 men in one afternoon there in 627. I'd like to know where you're going to now go, since you're a Quran-only man. You only go to the Quran, and you've already said tonight that you throw out all the traditions. More than that, you've thrown out 1,400 years of Sunni and Shiite teaching. You pretty well destroyed most of Islam right there. And it reminds me of the woman who was watching a parade, and she's saying, oh, isn't it fun? Isn't it nice? Everybody's out of step but my little Johnny boy. There is something that I will agree with you, and you did say that one of the problems with Christianity, and certainly with Islam, are the sultans. It is the sultans. And I'm hearing you say this all the way through. It was the people that came after Muhammad that distorted it, changed it, and made it what the religion we have today. And all the problems you've come up with have come from after Muhammad. And then you went back and said, you like living in America, you like living in Arizona, but you're glad of the fact that it has nothing to do with Christianity, because whenever Christianity is in power, it distorts and it also eradicates. And I would agree with you. We can shake hands on that. I would agree that whenever Christianity is in power, it will distort. And that's why Christ said very clearly, when asked about paying taxes, he said, give me the image on the back of the tax. Who does it belong to? It belonged to Caesar. He says, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and give to God what belongs to God. Christ separated church and state for a very good reason. Whenever the church and state come together, the state always corrupts the church. So does Islam. Whenever Islam brings the mosque and the state together, in every case, the mosque is corrupted. We agree on that. I'm not talking about
2 minutes.
I'm not talking about the Reformation. I'm not talking about the church and the history. I'm talking about Jesus Christ himself. It's Jesus Christ I go to. I don't go back to John Calvin. I don't go back to Zwingli. I don't go back to I don't even go back to Billy Graham. I go back to Jesus. Get it right. It's Jesus that gives us the model how we're to act. And what I see right about, even though I don't live in America, I live in London, but I'm talking about the European experience as well. The beautiful things that I see here in America and the things that are happening in Europe, if you look at the teachings of Jesus Christ, you will find this idea of equality that I mentioned earlier, the idea of equality, the idea of the fact that we must take care of the widows and the orphans, the fact that the first shall come last and the last shall come first, the fact that we are all priesthood, the priesthood of believers, the idea of democracy, it comes right out of the pages of the New Testament. And that's why it's beautiful to be able to live in an environment which are modeled by Jesus Christ. And I was asked you,
1 minute.
if you find anything wrong with Jesus, Can you find anything in anything he did or said that is not relevant for today? I've given you quite a few that are not relevant for Muhammad. I don't need to go on anymore. I think that's been done well enough. I think the biggest problem we're having listening to you is that what you want really is Jesus. You want everything that Jesus can give you. Even the way you translated your Quran is very much how a Christian, someone who follows Jesus, would translate the Quran. And I give you salutations for doing that. But why waste your time? Give up on the book. Give up on the man, and come on home. Because the man Jesus is waiting for you. You already see that you have a heart for him. I can see that you really want what Jesus did, the way he treated women, the way he treated the poor, the way he treated the oppressed, even not letting his own disciples defend him and telling Peter to put away his sword. You want that, and I can see you want it. Why don't you come on home? Why don't you come on home?
Edip, go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
You will not have any base arguing with the Quran against a believer of the Quran, someone who acknowledges the Quran and trusts in God. All you will do, you will bring external distortions. And you want me to believe those distortions must be relied because so many people write so many years later. But when I look at the Christianity, I see similar distortions made in the Christianity. And in Judaism too. I studied Bible, Old Testament and New Testament. I have written 2 books on them. And I see, for example, the word Trinity doesn't exist even in the Old Testament. In the New Testament, it is a big volume. If you get the book, hit someone's head, you can kill that person because it has so many pages in that book. So many words, hundreds of thousands of words. Not a single Trinity you don't find. But it is the name of your channel. It is your flag. But you made it up when? In Nicene Conference, 325 years, coined up these fabricated words based on the distortions of St. Paul, who is the Pharisee, son of Pharisee, who is predicted, prophesied by Jesus not to be followed. And who said, follow your owners to the slaves, obey your owners. Who despised women, he says women should not talk in congregations because you deceived Adam. Who asked for money while messengers of God never asked for money. And he justified his asking for money saying, well, I am your shepherd, you are my sheep, I should be able to milk you. And he became Gentile with Gentiles, Jew with a Jew in order to win them. He was Machiavellist before Machiavelli. And he was the one who made up the story about God sacrificing his own beloved son in order to be able to forgive people. And here it is. I want to finish up this because we need to rain check for this and discussion on this issue later, God willing. I want to read again. Do I have 1 minute? How much time I have? 2 minutes?
2 minutes left, yes.
Okay. Imagine a religion that its members worship the murder weapon. Pay attention. Each of them is a point for argument, a point of your distortion. Throughout history, perform rituals to pretend that they are drinking the blood and flesh of their heroic victim. Claim that 1 + 1 + 1 = 1. Adopt a word as their name, which was used by none of their early followers. Misspell and mispronounce the name of their hero. Follow someone's teaching who is prophetically condemned by their hero. Accept a formula that was coined by a self-appointed commission 325 years after the founder. Sing love and peace, yet be responsible for most of the bloodshed and weaponry in the world. Mobilize even children for centuries of barbarism called crusades. Sell parcels of heaven. Excommunicate scientists. Burn the first translator of their holy book. Burn women in witch hunt craze. Invent ingenious torture devices and torture many of their holy courts. Declare the earth as the flat center of the world for more than a millennium. Lead and pray for colonialists. Defend and practice slavery and racism until the cause was lost. Mostly side with kings and the wealthy. Deny women from many of their rights. Condemn the theory of evolution. Support occupations and wars with jingoistic slogans. Yes, how can a such religion with a fake name, with fabricated doctrine, with bizarre pagan practices, and with such a miserable historical record, and bitter fruits belong to God. How can it be attributed to a philosopher, to a peacemaker, to an advocate of the rights of the weak, to a human messenger of God, Jesus the Messiah?
1 minute.
Therefore, I want to invite you to discuss this issue. If you want to come to Arizona, welcome to my home. We'll face to face, each topic divided to section. I would like to discuss with you because I found you smart and did your research well, but this time you need restart, do research on Quran alone, because don't come up with false stories made up like your religion centuries later, fabricated by the warmongers or by flatterers of the kings in order to justify their massacres. They attributed a story, a Jewish story, which is very old story, to Muhammad, like Beni Qurayza. Check 19.org, the first homepage, write Qurayza with Q, you will find that article, Qurayza, Quraza. The first homepage, you will find that word and you will see the article exposing the lie.
Your time is up. We thank you for that. Are you enjoying this debate? Have you had any questions while Jay and Edip have gone back and forth debating with one another? Have you learned anything? Would you like to learn more? You're going to have your opportunity when we come back to ask any question that you would like. You'll see a number at the bottom of the screen. Jay and Edip, they're going to stand by. Be prepared to take the questions, whether you're a Muslim or whether you're a Christian. Hey, maybe you're even an atheist, an agnostic, a Buddhist, a Hindu. I don't know. If you have a question for either of these two gentlemen, we encourage you, when we come back after this break, to call in, ask your question, and be informed on whether or not the Quran is from God or if it's from man. Stay tuned, and we'll be back after this short break.
The new show that will be launched this summer will be called The Root of Islam. The show will feature Christian Prince as the main speaker, along with many other speakers that will join him. The first show will be on Wednesday, June 29th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ABN and Trinity Channel Live. The topic will be Ramadan and human blood sacrifices. If you have any questions, please call the numbers at your screen or visit our website at trinitychannel.com.
Thank you for watching and supporting ABN channels. If God places it on your heart, please call now to donate at 248-416-1300 or visit us at www.trinitychannel.com or send checks to our P.O. Box 724, Walled Lake, Michigan 48390. Every moment of every day, ABN is producing and recording new programs. We need you to help us hand in hand by sending your donations to our P.O. Box 724, Walled Lake, Michigan 48390, or visit us at www.trinitychannel.com or call us at 248-416-1300. ABN viewers, to watch free reruns of our marathon shows, apologetic shows, and English programs, go to www.youtube.com and type Trinity Channel. Here at ABN, we make it easier for viewers like you to watch programs. For more information, call us at 248-416-1300.
Is now publicly streaming on Roku. There is no need for a code anymore, and through Roku, you can watch us 24/7 on your TV. You can find us through two ways on Roku. The first way is through the streaming channel category. The second way is by searching for Trinity Channel in your search bar. For more information, please call the numbers at your screen.
You can now watch ABN in the Trinity Channel on your iPhone and iPad. Search for ABN Sat in the App Store. You can watch all the following channels: the Arabic Channel, the English Trinity Channel, the Worship Channel, the Surah Channel, the Kurdish Channel, the Al-Qadush channel, the prayer channel, and a special channel for Europe and the Middle East. For more information, please call the number on your screen or visit us at trinitychannel.com.
And we are back to ABN and the Trinity Channel, talking tonight on our live debate, is the Quran from God or is it from man? Have you been enjoying it? We've been discussing subjects about whether or not the Quran has any discrepancies. We've been talking about how to interpret the Quran and how is the Quran similar and how is it different to the New Testament. Our two debaters, if you're just tuning in with us, are Jay Smith as well as Edip Yuksel. Now has come to the opportunity where you at home have a chance to participate with our debaters live. We actually have some callers who are lined up. The way we're going to do this is I'm going to take the question from the caller, and you gentlemen that are debating, I want you to go ahead and I'll write the question down, but remember the question because I'm going to take all the questions at once so they don't have to stay on the line, and then we'll go through them one by one. Our first caller is John from the United Kingdom. John, good evening. Thank you for tuning into our show. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, John, why don't you go ahead and give me the question? I'm going to write it down, and then after the other questions are given, we'll answer yours right from the top, okay? What's your question?
Okay, well, it's a statement. Now, the Muslim guy has been saying that Christians add 1 + 1 + 1 = 1. Well, first of all, we don't use mathematics to prove things to do with Jesus Christ. But if he was to use mathematics, then we say Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. So that is 1 and 1 and 1 = 1. That's Boolean logic. So logically, using his method, we prove the point. But the question to him is that I'm a black man. What color was Muhammad? And what color were some of his slaves? Thank you.
Okay, we want to leave that question where it's at. We will have Edip answer that. Our next caller is Dan from the United States. Dan, how are you this evening? Thank you for tuning in.
Yes.
What's your question, Dan?
I wanted to ask my questions to the Muslim caller with respect to his last comment about the Catholicism and the Crusades and the persecution of various different sects throughout history. And I just wanted to ask him a question that if he understands that prior to Catholicism being put into place by Constantine in 313, that the Christians were the ones that were persecuted, and that paganism that he talks about is a subsequent from politics from Constantine to kind of to set forth his political agenda. So that's what I asked.
Okay. Edip, I want you to remember that. And we have one more caller. Okay. Actually, let's start it from the top here. First question went to Edip from John from the United Kingdom. He asked you, what color was Muhammad? Do you care to answer that, Edip?
What color?
What ethnicity, what color was his skin?
To me, it is a relevant question.
Well,
Who cares? I don't really care about his color. Pass this question. It is to me irrelevant.
Jay, Jay, would you care to answer that question, or do you want to move forward with Dave's call from the United States?
I imagine it's brown. Let's leave it at that.
Okay.
Does anybody know why that question was asked?
It was just, I think, out of curiosity. But we can move forward if it's irrelevant to the discussion.
Do you know the background to that?
He was making a comment about...
His color, let me answer. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Do you hear me? Okay, his color was the color of Jesus. Exactly, because they were cousins. They come from the same race.
Are we agreeing to move on to the next one? Or Jay, do you have anything you'd like to...
I would say that Edip is closer to his color than I am.
I appreciate the brevity. Let's move on. Dan from the U.S. made a comment about the Crusades. From what we gathered, he stated that paganism was a form of paganism and not necessarily true Christianity. Would either you like to comment upon this? How about we begin with Jay?
Yeah, I think that's a very good comment, and I think this is something that Edip needs to be careful. He's looking from the 4th century on at the atrocities, and there were, and I would agree with him. From the 4th century on, once Constantine made Christianity the state religion, That's where the corruption came in. And that's why Christ said very clearly in Matthew that give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar and give to God what belongs to God. He was separating church and state. He did that for a reason. Because the church over on this side has a different responsibility than the state. That's not to say the state can't go to war. It's not to say that we're not to obey the state. In Romans 13, it's very clear, where Paul says that we are to obey the state. The government is put there by God himself. And the state does go to war. But the church over here doesn't. It is not to do that. That is not what we're about. We have a completely different remit. Now, you can tell I'm a good Mennonite because I'm speaking like a Mennonite. Yet it's fascinating. It's the example of Christ himself. Did you notice that Christ did not go to war? He did not confront the Romans. He didn't even confront Herod. When his cousin, John, was in prison, and the disciples of John came to ask Christ to go and help him, what did Jesus say to the disciples? Go back to John and tell John what I'm doing. I'm healing the sick and giving sight to the blind. His mission on earth was not to bring about physical war, and that's why he did not confront the authorities of his day. He confronted the religious authorities, the Pharisees, the Sadducees. And that's why it's very important that we as Christians, those of us that belong to the church must not go to war. And I will debate anybody who says against that. Now, what Edip has done, he's looked at from the 4th century on and looked at the enormous amount of warfare that has happened, and certainly there isn't enough that he can crow about. Okay, what he's not going to do, though, he's not going to do the same thing. It can be consistent to Muhammad, because Muhammad did go to war. He did the mosque and the state together, and that's why from 632 to 624 to 632, that in that last 8 years, he was involved in 33 military campaigns. 29 military campaigns, and planned another 39 on top of that.
Okay, we have 3 other callers that we have to get to. Go ahead, our caller. You can go ahead. And who do we have with us?
This is Dan from Canada.
Hi, Dan. Thank you for calling tonight. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Listen, I just want to say thank you to both debaters for a very interesting time listening to them. I'd like to direct my question to Mr. Yuksel. My apologies if it's Dr. Yuksel, I don't know. The Muslims I talk to tell me that the way to be saved is to, live a good life, and your good works will outdo your bad works, and then Allah will accept you on the day of judgment. And they say that, no one can die on your behalf, because the Quran frequently says no man can bear the burdens of another man, like 4 or 5 times. I just want to, so we get to heaven on our good works in Islam, and to Mr. Yuksel, I just want to pose a truly honest question, just plain and simple question. If I want to get to heaven, and if I want to imitate one person that lived on this earth, would I be more likely to go to heaven if I imitated Jesus, or if I imitated Muhammad in terms of the life that they lived?
Edip, you can go ahead and answer that. You have 2 minutes, so we can get to the next caller.
Okay. Do you hear me?
We'll hear you perfectly.
Okay. The message of Jesus and Muhammad was the same. No difference. Follow either teaching, the same teaching. The teaching is what? Be free. Don't put between yourself and God any religious clergyman. There is no intercession. You are responsible in front of the God the day of judgment from your own practices and your decisions. No one can save you from the judgment day. God is merciful, forgiving, and just. Second, be good to people. Share your blessings with other people who are deprived, who are poor. Don't enslave people, because slavery makes you a pharaoh like Pharaoh. And third, be just, stand for justice, even if it is against your own petty interests, because justice in the end will serve everyone else. And also it is one of God's name is just. Seek the truth and use your God-given reasoning. This is the teaching of Islam, means peacemaking. Right, both Jesus and Muhammad. Let me finish it. It's very important, please. Let me finish this. And I didn't have a chance for the other questions. And the other is use your reasoning. Do not follow dogmas blindly. Don't let your brain, don't stop asking questions. When you go to church, you go to synagogues and mosques, you are stopped from questioning. No,
we have to
they
get to the
cannot
next
be
callers.
divine.
We have Henry. Henry, you welcome to the broadcast tonight. Can you tell us where you're from, and can you give us your question? I'm going to take your question. The other callers, I'm going to take their questions, and then we're going to get to them after we take them off. Henry, thank you for tuning in. Where are you from, and who's your question for?
Sure. I am from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and my question is for the man representing Islam. This is a great follow-up question to who would you live at by Jesus or Muhammad. My question is, how would you explain the massive number of Old Testament prophecies fulfilled by Christ in the New Testament, and also claim that Jesus was a fraud? One coincidence, fine. But the amount of prophecies, even in Isaiah, that Christ fulfilled is absolutely staggering. How do you explain that?
Okay, Henry, thank you for the intelligent question. We're going to get to that. Alistair, we thank you for tuning in tonight. Where are you from, and who is your question for? Alistair, can you hear me?
Me.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, where are you from, and who is your question for?
I am from Dallas, Texas, and I have a question for my Muslim friend. My question is, I know Qurani Muslims, as he stated, are recent, and so for 1400 years, what the Muslims have been doing, so all the Muslims who have believed for 1400s, they have been wrong. And how would you know? Like, you are new, and this is my question.
Okay, thank you, Alistair. We're going to have Edip, if he cares to answer that question, answer in just a moment. We have Sammy. Sammy, can you hear me tonight?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Where are you from?
I'm from Australia, but originally from Egypt.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. Is it morning over there? Good morning to you. Who is your question for?
Yeah, good morning. To the Muslim guy, he said that Jesus, when he said about the skin color, that Muhammad and Jesus are cousins. My question is, does this mean that Muhammad is a Jew? The second thing, when he said the Darb Rikab, he said Rikab is the plural of Rakib. No, this is wrong. Rikab and maybe this is the different one for the time. Just this question, does this mean that Muhammad and Jesus, when he says they are cousins, this means Muhammad is a Jew? And by the way, I'm helping also Bernie Power. I'm very proud to hear his name on the debate. I'm helping him in Australia. Okay. So the question is Muhammad and Jesus are cousins? This means Muhammad is a Jew. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other callers tonight? Okay. Edip, you have 3 questions. If you care to answer them, we'll give Jay the opportunity. We'll give you a minute, and then give Jay the opportunity to go for him. The first question was asked by Henry in Grand Rapids. He said, how do you explain Old Testament prophecies by Christ in the New Testament, seeing that just the number of prophecies fulfilled by Isaiah about Christ in Isaiah is staggering? Can you care to explain? Just take a minute and a half, please.
First of all, I don't reject Jesus. I accept Jesus as messenger, and I don't say Prophet Muhammad is better than him or the other way around. They're all messengers of God. They invited people to be free and only submit themselves to God alone and promote peace and live in justice in this world. And the verse 262, I want you to read that verse about salvation. In order to attain salvation, you need to believe in one God in the day of judgment and do righteous deeds. That's it. You don't need even to profess Muhammad or Jesus and stuff. They all promoted this message. And as far as prophecies about Jesus, some of them has been exaggerated and distorted. For example, like his lineage 1414, but most of them, I think it is there, and there should be prophecies about it. But the Old Testament, there are some distortions made by rabbis, like stoning to death, like killing the apostate, which Muslim, like veil, putting women in veil, like similar things. In fact, Sunni...
We have to give Jay an opportunity to respond. Let me ask you this question. Before we move forward in asking this, we would ask you gentlemen, you're generating a good response. Would you care to give us 10 more minutes to answer the callers so our broadcast doesn't come to a close as soon as it was supposed to be? If you gentlemen agree, we can continue to move forward. Would that be okay from you, Edip, and from you, Jay? Is that possible for 10 more minutes?
That's great.
fine with me.
Okay.
Should I continue the other three?
Yeah, we're going to get to it, but I want Jay to have a chance to respond to what the prophecies of Isaiah in the New Testament. Jay, if you could just take 1 minute, because we have so many callers and we need to move forward.
Can I just say something also? We have about 70 people in the room here. Many of them have questions. Can they ask questions from here as well?
I imagine that would be fine if you gentlemen can agree. They have to call in according to the station. I'm asking the station now. They do have to call in because we have a long list of callers from different...
Let me just say very quickly then, the fact that there are over 300 prophecies fulfilled by Jesus from the Old Testament is telling. That's what's missing from Muhammad. I don't see one prophecy of Muhammad at all in the Bible. I know they want to go to Deuteronomy 18, Song of Solomon 5:16, John chapter 14, chapter 16. Those are desperation. And if you just look at the context, not one of them fits Muhammad. The fact that Jesus is so well known, all long before he even came, hundreds of years before he even came, thousands of years before he even came, suggests to me why Edip has such a love for Jesus and why he sees that Muhammad is very much like Jesus. He has made Muhammad like Jesus. He is creating Muhammad like Jesus. And we're finding this with an awful lot of Muslims. They love Jesus. How can you help but love Jesus? Because they love Jesus so much, and when they read these stories about Muhammad that bother them, well, what Edip says, he just throws them all out. He says, I don't want to do with him. I want to be a Quran-only man. He has destroyed everything he knows about Muhammad. Therefore, he knows nothing about Muhammad, so he's creating, really, his Muhammad like Jesus. He's just bringing him home. And I would suggest that rather than create something that's false, why don't you come back to the real article? Why don't you just come back to Jesus himself? He makes sense to me. He's been around for 2,000 years, and I don't see anybody in 2,000 years that's found anything wrong with him.
Thank you.
So,
Thank
that
you.
would be my...
No, Edip, before you go on, we have 4 other callers. We need to move to the next question. Those that are on, have called in, stand by. We're going to answer this one question, then I'm going to take your questions. We had Alisher from Dallas, Texas. Edip, he asked you, 1,400 years, based upon your interpretation, were all the Muslims wrong for the last 1,400 years based upon your interpretation? Have the Muslims, who I believe you said were the Shiites and the Shias, or the Sunnis and the Shiites, have they been wrong for the last 1,400 years based upon what you've been saying? Edip?
Yeah. The thing, in fact, this person doesn't know the history of Islam. For example, look at Shafi'i, one of the 4 sects of Sunnism. Shafi'i wrote a book. If you read that book, it is against Quran alone people. In fact, in the Bukhari alone, you will find a statement Umar makes, says Quran alone is enough for us. In fact, he stops someone writing a statement, the last statement from Prophet Muhammad, according to Hadith Bukhari. In their own book, they have these contradictions. Later, you find this argument, but later through sultans, through power, they killed many of these people who were believers, who followed the Quran alone, who rejected Hadith. For example, Imam Abu Hanifa never followed Hadith. In fact, there's not a single Hadith from him narrated in Bukhari. My gentleman, my friend, wants to put Bukhari and Ibn Hisham Siyar into the argument, but I bet he will not believe any of the Bukhari because he knows it is lie. If he is a person, honest person, he will know that Bukhari made up many lies about Prophet Muhammad. For example, he said Prophet Muhammad pointed at the moon and the moon split into half. In another hadith, half of it fell into Ali's backyard. And do you believe in these hadiths? If someone fabricates these hadiths, why you don't believe that? Why you do believe the other hadiths which puts down Muhammad? You don't believe in the hadiths when they put Muhammad next to God. Let me finish.
We have to give Jay a chance to respond. We have many calls. We just need to give Jay a chance to respond. Jay, can you hear me okay?
Yes, it's exciting to see what we have done. In some ways, we've come full circle. Have you all noticed? We started out asking about the Quran, and we asked which Quran. And then now we've kind of moved over to Muhammad, looking and seeing what he did, but his benign example. And now Edip is saying, throw out everything that's been in the last 1,400 years, disregard everything. Let me tell you who Muhammad is. He didn't know the color to begin with, but nonetheless, he's going to tell us who Muhammad is, but he has no reference but the Quran itself. He's now come back to the Quran to find reference to Muhammad. How much is there about Muhammad in the Quran? There are only 4 references to his name in the entire Quran. Oh, there's lots of references to the messenger, the prophet, the place of the prophet, the place of the messenger. But why is Muhammad's name not there? Why is it that we can find 93 references to Isa and yet only 4 to Muhammad? Can you see? It seems like the Quran is more interested in someone else than even the man that Edip's trying to show us today. But it comes right back to what we asked at the very beginning. What Quran are you talking about? Are you talking about the Quran of Ibn Masud that only had 111 surahs? Are you talking about the Quran of Ubay ibn Ka'b that had 115 surahs? Are you talking about the Quran of Ibn Musa that had 116 surahs? Or are you talking about the Quran of Zayd ibn Thabit that only had 114 surahs? I've given you 3 different Qurans, 3 different sets of surahs, all listed, and I'm taking this out of your traditions, which you have rejected now. So which Quran are we talking about?
We have 4 more callers that are standing by. Edip and Jay, if you're listening, we want to be able to get to those callers, but it will require 10 more minutes of your gentleman's precious time. Would either of you be willing to stay for 10 more minutes to answer our callers that are standing by? Is that possible?
Answer this one first. Let me answer this
one. Is that okay before we move on? Adib?
Yes, okay.
What about you, Jay? Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. We have to move on to the next question that was given to us by our Sari in Australia. Was a question for Edip. He asked, is Jesus, if he's cousins with Muhammad, is he a Jew? Care to answer that question, Edip? Please just take 30 seconds.
Well, everyone knows that Arabs followed Ismail, one of the sons of Jacob, and then the other Isaac. Basically, they are cousins, and this is historically known fact. They are related to each other. Arabs and Jews, they come from Abraham. They were children of Abraham. And simple fact. But you are talking about 1400 years. It is big lie. First of all, it's not 1400 years. The distortions made later. However, the same with the Christianity.
Adib, we have to move forward with the question.
You reject.
Jay, can you tell us, do you care to piggyback off of that? Was Jesus cousins with Muhammad? Is Muhammad a Jew? If not, we're going to move to the next callers. Jay, can you hear me?
Oh, you want me to? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Did you care to answer that, or do you want to defer and move forward?
I would suggest Jesus and Muhammad have nothing to do with each other. If I look at Jesus and Muhammad, there's no comparison. As far as cousins, he's trying to go back to the line of Abraham, not Jacob. He misnomered on that, because Ishmael is not in the line of Jacob. And he's trying to say, therefore, there are cousins. I would suggest that you go back to Genesis 17, because when Abraham asked that question, what did God do? He rejected Ishmael, said he would be a leader of 12 nations, but his covenant is with Isaac. And that's why from that time on, you don't see much about Ishmael anymore. By chapter 22, in fact, he doesn't even exist by chapter 22. 3 times God asks Abraham to bring his one and unique son, one and only son. He had 2 sons. Did God forget this?
Okay, let's go ahead and move to the next callers. We have 3 callers that have been patient on the line. They're going to give us 3 fresh questions. We have Yuksel. Yuksel, thank you for your patience tonight. Where are you calling from?
I call from Texas.
Okay.
Yes. Merhaba Edip abi. Nasılsınız? Ben de bir Türk'üm.
Can you repeat that?
Edip abi merhabalar. İyi misiniz?
Okay. Can you give to me a question, please, that I can understand?
Okay. Yeah, I want to say these things about the correct one thing. Also, I have a question. So Edip abi, Mr. Edip said there is no slavery in Islam. He's a Turk. I'm a Turk also. But Turkish people became a Muslim through slavery. Plus, my question is this. I'm sure he reads Bible and the New Testament also. If he finds, when he searches the Bible, if he finds the Bible is the right to heaven, Jesus Christ is the only Savior, would he become a Christian? Yes or no? I just want to ask this.
Okay. Our next question is Carl. Carl, are you there? Carol, can you hear me, Carol? Carol, are you there? Do we have another caller? Okay, Jay, would you like to take Yuksel's call from Texas and address that according to what he just said?
Could you repeat the question?
Adib, did you understand the question?
The question.
Was it just a comment?
I don't understand the question. I didn't hear it properly.
Okay, do we have another caller? Is Carol there?
May I answer something?
Go ahead. We'll move forward with this. Go ahead.
Here it is. I want to read a verse, exactly what you do about the Quran. Do not suppose, it is Matthew 10:34. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Now, if I do exactly like you do to the Quran, I can say, well, don't tell me lie. Here is Jesus was a warmonger, not a man of peace. And therefore Christianity throughout centuries, the Catholic Church and the Crusades, all the witch hunting, killing, it was in the name of Jesus.
Jay, can you please address
This will
that?
be dishonest. Listen carefully.
We have to move on. We have to move. We have to keep going.
Can I answer that?
Yes, you can, Jay. Go ahead.
Okay, very quickly. If you need to look at the entire chapter, it's the commissioning of the 12 disciples. And Christ is saying very clearly, I'm sending you out as sheep before wolves. You're going to be hated. You're going to be persecuted. You're going to be jailed. You're going to be flogged. You're going to be killed. That's quite a commissioning. I didn't get commissioned like that. I think we all need that commissioning. And then he says, I have not come to bring peace, but the sword, to send father against son, mother against daughter. The sword is going to be against us. That's our commissioning. There's nowhere that says that we can use the sword. If you read on, it says, he who's not worthy, who's not willing to take up the cross is not worthy to be my disciple. And then the very next day, he applied it. Look and see what he did there in the Garden of Gethsemane. When Peter took out his sword and cut off the ear of the servant, Jesus took the ear, put it back on the servant, turned towards Peter and says, put away your sword. For he who lives by the sword that way dies by the sword that way.
Okay, Jay, we have a caller from Turkey. Melton, you're live with us. How are you tonight? Melton, are you there?
Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
Is this Melton? Hello?
Yes, this is Melton.
Thank you for calling. Where are you calling from tonight?
I'm willing to ask a question to Jay.
Okay. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Izmir, Turkey.
Okay. Welcome to the broadcast, Jay. Melton, what is your question for Jay?
My question for Jay is there a verse in the Bible saying that the non-believers, those who didn't want to believe in Jesus, that they said that his words are not coming from God, that it's a man's word, that it's not from God, he's saying.
So
because in Quran we have so many verses that non-believers showed with the non-believers said that the words of Muhammad, the words of the other messengers who have came to earth, doesn't say the words of God. It's the man's word.
So Melton, let me make sure I understand your question. You're asking Jay if there's a verse in the Bible that states that Jesus' words were from men, not from God. Is that what I understood you to say?
Yeah. I was asking that question, and I think Edip Yuksel.
Okay. Jay, do you care to answer that question? Melton has asked if there a verse in the Bible that states that Jesus' words were from God, not from man. Man, but before you answer that, I want to take John's call. John, go ahead quickly. You're with us tonight. Thank you for calling in. What's your question? Who's it for?
My question is for the Muslim gentleman. I want to say thank you to both gentlemen, Jay, for their time today. So there was a previous caller who talked about who should I follow, Jesus or Muhammad, and how is that going to give me salvation, whether I be judged by God accordingly. So my question is, if the Quran is from God, or is it from man? So if it's from God, would God not give us, man, the opportunity to understand what it means to be saved, rather than just saying arbitrarily, just do good works, give charity, be good to the poor? What is the scale? What is the precedent from God to tell me that I am going to be saved? For a quick example, if I were to do 9 bad things and my fellow man did another 9 bad things, and then I did 10 good things and he did 9 good things, how are we to know if I would be saved or that gentleman would be saved? What is the criteria? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go back to Melton's question. Let me ask you, Jay, Is there a verse that says in the Bible that Jesus' words are the words of men and not of God? Go ahead and explain. Please take 1 minute, 1.5 minutes.
Quickly, in my Bible, I've got the red letter and the black letter. The red letter are Jesus' own words. Jesus claimed to be God. Every time that Jesus spoke, and that the whole New Testament is riddled with references to Jesus. Now, I think the questioner is getting confused concerning what we mean, the fact that man wrote it down. And so therefore she's assuming, therefore, since it was written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and the others, that therefore it's written by men. That is true, inspired by God, but writing down the very words of Jesus, what he said, and the very things what he did. That's why we go to the New Testament as an example for us today. And that's why Edip seems to have fallen in love with Jesus. I wish he'd come on home to him.
The question that you were asked is, what is the scale to be saved? Jesus, according to John, he said Jesus requires faith more than just good works. From a Muslim point of view, what's the requirement for salvation?
You want me to answer that?
It is the same.
We'll give you the opportunity after Edip. Go ahead.
It is the same. Faith, trust in God is important. In fact, monotheism, the first two commandments, which Christians ignore the most. In fact, they distorted. And the first two commandments are very important. The first commandment is, do not submit yourself to anyone except your Creator, God. And this is ultimate freedom, because the moment you create clergymen, intercessors between yourself and God, you become their slaves. You are being manipulated personally, spiritually, and exploited economically, politically. And throughout history, we see the biggest trouble, misery, and atrocities committed by humans who submit themselves, who follow blindly the leaders, religious or political leaders. That's the most important thing, to be a monotheist and later good deeds, and believing that there will be the day of judgment that will be responsible.
We have John from the UK. John, can you welcome back? Can you give us your question?
Hello, hi. Yeah, sorry about before I didn't explain. Now, ancient Islamic sources tell us that Muhammad was a white man. And in fact, they even go as far as to mention the color of many of his slaves. And they describe most of them, or some of them, as being black. No other description is given as to the color of other slaves. But Muhammad was a white man who kept black people as slaves. This is very important for many black Americans to know. And I think Jay can elaborate on this.
Okay, and now we have Beth from the UK. Beth, thank you for your question. Thank you for tuning in tonight. What's your question, Beth? Beth, are you there?
Hi, hello.
How are you, Beth? Welcome to the Trinity channel.
Thank you.
What's your question? Who's it for?
I have a question for Mr. Edip Yuksel. I wanted one thing that I noticed as I was listening to him, that he seemed to be his own highest authority. And it was intriguing when you look at his Quran. In Surah, he's taken out some verses, for example, Surah 928, 929. And we were wondering what manuscripts these were based on. And also because he is so focused on just the Quran and not really looking at Islamic history, the Quran provides such little context and explanations within itself. There's a lot of verses that become very difficult to understand. For example, Surah 111, verse 1, it mentions a man called Abu Luhab. We don't have a clue who this is if you don't look at texts outside of the Quran. And so there's a lot of people, places, and events that really are nonsense, really, when you begin to throw out all of Islamic history and what all the exegetes say. So one, he seems to be his own highest authority, but the other question is, how on earth do you understand the Quran when you throw out much of Islamic history and exegetes?
Okay, let's take that. Let's start with that. Since it's fresh, Edip, do you care to answer Beth and respond to her?
First of all, I know you are hanging on history. You know that history is fabricated. You know that the kings write history. You know that the winners write history. You know that you can find anything you like in those so-called history books in order to condemn the Quran. You cannot fight the Quran by relying on the text of the Quran alone. I know your problem. I reject that history written by sultans, by killers, who really killed many people who expressed it. I reject the history of Christianity, who even burned Tyndale, who translated. You cannot rely on the history of Catholicism. You don't. But you want, in order to really condemn Islam or Quran or Muhammad, you want to pick and choose from false piles of books according to your wishes. This is not honest. This is not scholarly.
Jay, go ahead and Jay. I want Jay. We have one more. You're gonna get an opportunity. I gotta move to Jay, then we're gonna take the next caller. Jay, you have a minute to respond to Edip. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say that Edip has done the very thing he's claiming that history has done. He has taken his own paradigm. He's taken his view of Muhammad and has eradicated, thrown out 1,400 years of history and imposed that view of Muhammad, his view of Muhammad, onto the historical context. I would suggest that that's not very good historical criticism. We don't know of anybody else that uses that paradigm other than him. Perhaps he should have a new, we should call it Yukselism rather than Islam, because it seems to be an Islam based on his own experience, based on his own model, based on what he would like to see Islam is. I don't think that's fair to the exegetes and certainly fair to the Islamic traditions. I think we need to be careful because we would have a difficult time if we try to do that to Christianity. If we try to suppose that therefore we know nothing about Jesus except what we today suggest he is, then we're throwing out 2,000 years of history. Thank goodness we don't have to do that because I love everything I see about Jesus.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. We have Idris from UK. Idris, welcome to our show tonight. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I am fine. I'd like to, my salam or my peace to both speakers. My question is mainly to our Christian brother, and I'd like the Muslim brother to comment as well.
Okay.
My question is Matthew 7, verses from 21 to 23. Could we please read them loudly? The Christian speaker, could you please read chapter 7, verses 21 to 23?
Can you state your question, please?
My question, could you please read chapter 7, verses 21 to 23, and the Muslim brother to comment? What is the meaning of this?
You're asking.
Of these verses?
Okay, you're asking the meaning of Matthew 7, 21 to 23. Is that your only question?
My question is, Jesus is coming back to disclose the truth, mainly to the Christians, to tell them what they are, what they're hidden. The agenda they're carrying now is contrary to Jesus Christ, peace be with him. Now, can you read chapter 7, verses 21 to 23, and tell me what is your answer to Jesus?
Okay, your question for Jay is, can you explain the meaning of Matthew chapter 7, 21 to 23? We appreciate your question. Jay,
read it. Can you read?
Well, I want you, Idris, I want you to state your question. We have to take other callers. He will explain the meaning to that, but can you please state your question before he reads it?
My question to the Christian brother, what are you prepared? What's your answer to Jesus from chapter 7, verses 21 to 23? And I would like the Muslim brother to comment.
Okay, we appreciate your call. Thank you, Idris. The question is to Jay.
Here we go. I'm going to read it very quickly. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many of you will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons and perform many miracles? Then I will tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers. It's a verse that a set of verses that warn us that we need to be careful what we do with Jesus' word, that we don't add to it like Edip is doing tonight, that we don't take away from it, and that Christ will not recognize us when we see him on the day of judgment. And I want to say to all the Muslims that are listening, including the man that's just called, have you looked and seen what Jesus has said? Have you realized that he did come speaking in the name of the Father, and everything he did, everything he said, he fulfilled? Are you ready to accept that? Because on the day of judgment, you're going to have to stand before him, as these verses say, and you're going to have to stand before him and know and say, did you follow what Jesus did? Did you accept that he died on the cross and rose again? That's what it's asking you. Are you willing to accept that right now? Are you willing to accept the fact that You can't work off your own salvation. Only God can and has done it for you. Come on home. His
Thank
name
you,
is
Jay.
Jesus.
Thank you, Jay. Edip, you have 1 minute to respond, and then we have to take the next caller.
We have the Catholic version in 1970. Very interesting. The translation of this very verse, it is very little bit different, but it is major difference. It says, this is Matthew 7, chapter 7, verse 21. None of those who cry out, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of God, but only the one who does the will of my Father in heaven. When that day comes, many will plead with me, like many of these priests and pastors. Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name? Have we not exorcised demons by its power? Did we not do many miracles in your name as well? Then I will declare to them solemnly, I never knew you. Out of my sight, you evil doers. When they called Jesus good teacher, he said, no, don't call me good. Call only God is good. A person who claims to be divine will never claim such a statement.
Okay, we have to get to the next caller. We have Stephen from the UK. Stephen, thank you for calling in tonight. What is your question, and who is it for?
Okay, I have a question for the Muslim guy. According to the Quran, Surah 27, verse 17 to 27, where the Solomon and the ants, where they've got talking birds, a whoopee bag, and ants talking to humans. If that is from the Quran, is from the, how did this get into the Quran? This story of talking ants and talking birds. How did it get into the Quran?
Okay. Thank you for your call, Stephen. And then I want to take Carol. Carol, thank you for calling in tonight. Where are you calling from? Carol, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Where are you calling in from?
I'm calling from Boston, United States.
Okay, welcome to our show tonight. Thanks for calling. Who's your question for, and what is it?
My question is really a counter statement to what we just talked about in Matthew 7, 21 through 23. I think what the Muslim apologist is failing to realize is that when Jesus is talking about not knowing those and pushing people away from him, is those that rely on works for salvation. When we know that salvation is by faith alone through Jesus Christ. He's also referencing the people like the Catholic Church that he likes to reference in his fake Bible that are apostates to the religion. Christianity is pure monotheism, and these apostate religions, or the religions that have fallen away or doing things that are not of God, are what he's speaking of. That's why he will not know them in the day when they say, have I not prophesied in thy name? Have I not casted out devils? If you look at the different types of sections of the Christian, so-called Christian faith, those are the ones that are the apostates in Jesus' eyes. I would like him to comment on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carl, for calling. Now, Edip had a question concerning the Quran, and I want you to take 1 minute, Edip, and then I want to give Jay 1 minute to address that question. Please respect the 1 minute. Go ahead.
What verse she was referring? I didn't hear, or he
I
was.
believe it was Surah 9. She was asking you what happened. The way I understood it, she was asking you to address what happened to the verse that Jay was asking you earlier, perhaps in the beginning of our discussion, where it went.
Yeah. This is a long story, and it will not fit half a minute or even half an hour. We need 1 hour on this alone. It is very important. The mathematical of the Quran exposed few errors in today's manuscripts. Again, it is a powerful, intricate mathematical system. You can predict what will come next, what will be the frequency of a particular word. Is it such a verifiable and falsifiable scientific investigation? This showed that these two verses in the end of chapter 9, 128, 129, do not belong to the Quran. In fact, in their own fabricated lies, history books and those hadith books, there are a lot of false statements about this, funny statements that this came by one witness alone and this and that. So many lies they fabricated in order to justify this. But we prove it based on mathematics. In the beginning, I gave you two examples. We did not take heed It is very important, challenging you guys. Get any book, find two errors.
We have 1 minute. Jay, go ahead and you can follow up with that.
And probably this is a good one to end on because we are running out of time. Let me just say, can you notice what he has done now? He has taken Surah 19 and he has said, throw out those 2 verses because it doesn't fit his paradigm. It doesn't fit his model. He needs to find the number 19. So he throws out those 2 verses. So far, the only reason he has thrown those out, I don't know if you all picked it up, the only reason he has thrown those out is because he only has 1 witness. Surah 33, ayah 23 only has 1 witness, but he leaves that in. So why is he being inconsistent here? Because he cannot dare throw the others out. He still hasn't answered how he got 113 bismillahs along with Surah 27, ayah 30, another bismillah that he either adds or takes away, so that he comes up with 6,346. And I would say this is typical of people that are in numerology. You have to manipulate the text. You have to throw out the text. And when you ask, will any Muslim be happy with him throwing out those 2 verses out of the Quran, every Muslim in the world would be upset with him. But then he's thrown out all the Muslims in the world anyways, because they're Sunni and Shiite. And therefore, the Quran and Islam is only what Yuksel says. I would suggest that Yuksel needs to be careful because he's going to get the ire of everybody in the world on his back. He has not been consistent to good, straight exegesis, as we've seen tonight, and he certainly has yet to answer the question, what about the manuscripts? What about the verses he's thrown out? What about where it came from? He hasn't answered any of those.
And Jay, I want to thank you guys. We appreciate your graciousness. We have one more caller who has been waiting on the line for quite some time. We would hate to end without them being able to make their comment or state their question. I'm going to give you 2 gentlemen 1 minute to respond to the caller, and then each of you a 3-minute closing statement. Yusuf, you're our last caller tonight. Thank you. What is your comment?
Question is to the Muslim guy. I'm sorry, I did not know his name.
His name is Edip.
What the Quran tell about us? We are Christian. We are infidel or over infidel, or the Muslim must believe in our God, that Jesus is God.
Okay.
Because in Al-Ma'idah we are infidel, Al-Imran 555 over infidel, and Al-Ankabut 46, we, the Muslim, must believe in our God. Thank you.
Okay, and we want to give Edip, now listen, I'm going to give you 1 minute to respond to that, plus 3 minutes for your closing statement. Then I'm going to give Jay 1 minute to respond to that, 3 minutes for your closing statement. So please include your closing statement in your rebuttal. Edip, we'll begin with you, we'll end with Jay. Go ahead.
Is it closing or response?
It's a response, and then closing, you have 4 minutes.
The same? Okay. Gentlemen, if you are people of the book or you are infidel, whoever you are, it is your choice. The Quran says, La ikraha fi din. There is no compulsion in religion, in system. Whoever wants to believe, let them believe. Whoever reject, let them reject. This is a test in this world. You are free, whatever you follow. You can go against Jesus, make Jesus God, make up Trinity, which doesn't exist, and worship the weapon, the murder weapon, whatever you want. You can go whatever you believe, as long as you don't hurt people, you don't kill people in the name of your God. And this is according to the Quran. In fact, the Quran says, if they are chapter 4, 140, if they are mocking your religion when you are discussing, arguing with them, leave their presence, and then when they stop mocking, continue your discussion and debate with them. And therefore, this is a freedom. You are free, whatever you believe. We need to live in peace as friends. If you need help, I should help you, regardless of your being Christian or whatever Jew you are. This is the teaching of Quran. As far as, I'm sorry, this is distracted. As far as for people of the book, as you are, I see that you are, unfortunately, if you are following today's Christianity, which is offshoot of Nicene Conference, you are idolizing Jesus against Jesus in the day of judgment, as in the verse we read just in Matthew, Jesus will reject you, and Muhammad will reject so-called Muslims who idolize him against his wish. The same way, the major principle is monotheism. Unfortunately, Satan attacks this most important thing, distorted, either adds or divide into 3 pieces, 4 pieces, insert gods, and then you end up following the church, the priests, the leaders. You go kill your brother in his name.
Okay, Edip, we want to say from the Trinity Channel and from ABN and from all of us that have participated in this debate, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on. And thank you also for your tremendous graciousness in extending the debate by a half hour. We certainly appreciate it. And we thank you very much for it. We want to give Jay an opportunity to finish with his closing statements. We know it's getting late there where you're at. We also appreciate your graciousness, Jay. You can go ahead and rebuttal and end with your closing statement as well.
Thanks so much. This has been a good, actually it's been about 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours coming up. And I want to thank Edip for his congeniality. I want to thank him for his passion. We started this whole debate by asking the question, is the Quran from God or man? And that's really what we were asking today. Is it from on high, or is it just written by men? I think we have noticed all the way through that there has been a manipulation of the text of the Quran. Certainly that manipulation started to begin in the 8th century. We saw that continued up into the 9th century, possibly even to the 10th century. We know that there were many different readings. We know that by the time in Al-Azhar University in Cairo in 1924, so we're talking about a little less than 100 years ago, they had to then write the final Quran. And so the book that I have in my hand today does not come from Uthman. It does not come from the 7th century. It comes from the 20th century, less than 100 years ago. 1924 is the date. But that's not the only Quran we have. That's just one. That's the Hafs Quran. There are about 14 others. Warsh, probably the one that's probably the most prolific after the Hafs. And we've found over 1,300 differences between the Warsh and the Hafs. So even in the 20th century, they're still manipulating it. According to Al-Bukhari, in the time of Uthman, if this really did happen, Uthman then burned all the manuscripts, according to Al-Bukhari, volume 6, 509 and 510. We do know that in 1924, the Egyptians took all the texts that did not agree with the Hafs, and they actually drowned them in a boat in the Nile. That was less than 100 years ago. There is man's manipulation again. So we see a manipulation of this text all the way through the centuries, continuing up until 1924. And then in 1924, then, the final text, which we have in our hands today, sublimating any other text, but still there's there's a good 24 in Jordan. There's 17 in Bernie's library. We have 9 there in London. So there's still many different Qurans that we even have today. They did do that great a job in 1924. The answer to me is, from what this is showing me, is that this is truly a book made by man. Now we've had Edip Yuksel come up and give us a whole other Quran. I don't know where it is. If you could bring it up here. A completely different Quran that it was now created just a few years ago by Edip himself. Now this Quran does not agree with this Quran or the other 14. In fact, this Quran takes out 2 verses in Surah 9. Now he's admitted that, but he doesn't tell us why. He doesn't explain. So now we've got yet another Quran written by a man, because Edip is a man, proving that even in the 20th century, the Quran's still been manipulated, still being changed and corrected. Why did he have to do that? It's obvious to me that the Muslims are having a problem with the Quran. They cannot find anything in the Quran that really is substantiated for 1,400 years that makes sense today. A few of the questions that come up tonight are, can you really live by this book? Surah 5, Ayah 38, cut off the hands of the thieves. Do we really want that for the West today, for the world today? Surah 24, Ayah 2, beat the adulterers 100 lashes. Do you really want that for today? Surah 4, Ayah 34, beat your wife if she disobeys you. Do you really want to have that today? Can you see why this book is so hard to digest? When we're at Speaker's Corner, nobody brings down the Quran except us. I don't see any Muslims with the Quran in their hands because they cannot defend this book. It's not defendable. That's why Edip has had to put together an entirely different book, a new one. He says at the very beginning what he's going to do. He's going to make sure that this Quran is a Quran of peace. This Quran is a Quran of egalitarian. In other words, he's going to change the text so that it is politically correct. A sanitized Quran, yet a completely new Quran. Now that's not good exegesis. That's not what you do with the text. Thank God we don't have to do that with the Bible. And I wish you, Edip, and all those Muslims who are watching, realize we don't have to do this with the Bible. The Hebrew's there, the Greek's there, we go right back to the Hebrew, we go right back to the Greek. We don't change it, we don't need to manipulate it, we don't have to keep revising it, we don't have to keep on changing and bringing completely different references, we don't have to throw out verses. No, the good thing about the New Testament of Jesus Christ, the gospel of Jesus Christ, is that it's absolutely sanitized for today. It's as appropriate and relevant today in the 21st century as the day it was written in the 1st century. That's why I love Jesus. That's why I love his gospel. That's why we bring the gospel of Jesus Christ to you. We don't have this question. We've not talked much about the gospel of Jesus Christ tonight because there's been no need to. All the questions have been against this book, because this book has all the problems. Folks, this is the little book. Get the bigger, the better book. Come on back. Come on back to the Bible. We give you Jesus and his scripture. God bless you. It's been a good night.
From the bottom of our heart, and those that are with you, thank you so much for coming on to the Trinity Channel.